Hi, Susie.
Hi, how are you?
Fine. How about you?
Great, thank you.
Hi, Dwayne.
Hey, how are you?
Fine.
Good to see you guys.
You
Yeah,
too.
you too. How's everything going?
Staying busy on this end. Yep. Just
Yeah.
like everyone.
Yeah, it's a busy
I
time.
got an email just a few minutes ago from AVH. They send out weekly emails, and
Yeah.
it looks like the positivity rate is going up again.
I know. I saw that. I looked at it after you sent it. That's
right.
a bummer. I was sort of thinking they would start to go down.
Yep.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Katie.
Was I muted? Hello.
Oh, hello. There you are.
I did say hello the first time. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
I logged in first from the link on the agenda, and that kicked me out after a few minutes. And so then I went back in and went. So I don't know if Jonathan might be having any difficulty depending on which link. I don't know. Did anybody else have any troubles today?
I used the one on the district website because I didn't see it on the agenda. So
Yeah, I went on the one from the agenda. It's posted before you dive into the view of the agenda. You see it as just the entry for the regular board meeting. That video clip, that link was successful.
That one, yeah, that one worked.
Thank you, Eliza.
maybe I'll text Jonathan and see.
Jonathan just jumped on.
Oh, he did? Great.
Great.
Okay, we can probably get started then. Everybody, Eliza, you ready? Dave, you ready? Everybody ready? It's 4:02 and I'll call the meeting to order. Eliza, will you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Katie Frisch,
Here.
Susan Merle,
Here.
Jonathan Nickel,
Here.
Dwayne Romero,
Here.
and Susie Zimmett.
Here.
Thank you. Quorum's met.
Okay. I'll take a motion now to approve the agenda as presented. Adopt the agenda, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Katie Frisch,
Hi.
Susan Merle,
Aye.
Jonathan Nickel,
Aye.
Dwayne Romero,
Aye.
and Susie Zimmett.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to get started here. I just wanted to kind of express our appreciation for all the feedback that we've received. We've received phone calls, emails, public comment. We know that you care about our students in our district, and if we haven't gotten back to you individually, we've heard you, and so we're taking it all to heart. I also just kind of want to mention that we've heard from all different parts of our community. Parents that are concerned for their children's instruction and academic progress, students who are feeling isolated and lonesome, and then teachers who are concerned about their health and that of their families, and also their ability to provide effective instruction. So we know that we're all working together against one problem, which is COVID-19. And so we just really appreciate everybody's hard work as we address all these issues. So I just want us to kind of keep that in mind, that we're all working together as we go forward in the meeting. And then just kind of logistical piece, we based on feedback we got and just sort of the ability to focus on everything that's actually going on in the meeting, we've turned off the public chat feature, but it's still will be open if you'd like to leave a message and your email address. It won't be public on this Zoom call, but it'll be available for board members to read and respond after the meeting. So that's the public chat feature. And then always, if you have any, we will continue to have public comment. And then if you also would like to speak with board members, you can always email us or contact us otherwise. So with that, we can go on to our 4.1, which is the ASD opening update. So Dave, I'll sort of throw it over to you.
Thank you, Susan. I want to reinforce what Susan said. You know, we are hearing everybody and trying to take as much in as we possibly can. You know, we also know that at this point in time, there are many different viewpoints, which we've recognized in this meeting before. I'm about to dive into the ASD opening update, and I have heard from board members and from families that there are still many, many questions around the plan to get more students back onto campus. The chat feature, while not public facing, we can capture your questions in the chat feature, and we are having another town hall next Monday at 5 o'clock, and we will build the town hall around the community's questions and concerns. So I do want to say that right up front. And so basically, I'm going to give sort of the 50,000-foot view of the, you know, opening update. And again, you know, a community letter went out, and again, I apologize for the delay. We had hoped to be back by the 5th, but we delayed to the 26th. It would have been the 19th, except that that's already scheduled for parent conferences and, you know, a teacher work day, staff work day. So that week was already shot. But that being said, Liza, if you'd pop the first slide up, or even open the PowerPoint, that would be great. Right, and the next slide, the first one's just sort of the introduction, and these will be on our website at the Corona Hub, so you're welcome to revisit those at any time. So, you know, we did build our reopening plans around the CDC checklist for the reopening of schools. We continue to revisit that. Concerns were brought up at the last meeting that we're no longer grounded in science, and I have to disagree with that statement. That's the really only thing we're trying to run the reopening plan on. You know, I did talk with Aspen Education Association, and they shared with me, or the president, and she shared with me that, you know, the really nitty-gritty details need to be answered. And so we've agreed to continue to work on that. You know, and our plan relies on layered mitigation strategies. You know, the 5 principles of containment. You know, this board passed a mask mandate for the district, and, you know, candidly, yeah, every now and then a mask slips off a face or something like that. But for the most part, you know, mask adherence has been really awesome. I want to stress again, the remote learning opportunities are available at all levels. So there was a question came up from a community member. I met 6 feet apart, of course, but met, and, you know, and he said, hey, I really don't want my son to go back to school. And I said, hey, we have a remote learning opportunity available for him. Just contact your principal. We're continuing the hand washing and sanitization, and the bipolar ionization project that this board also approved is starting to move forward. Our own facilities department is beginning site work so that we can get folks in here, we hope later this week or early next at the latest, to begin installing the bipolar ionization, which hopefully by now, most folks know, will help change the air quality that is in the classrooms. And the bipolar ionization, oops, little spelling error there, sorry. But will actually kill a lot of the COVID-19, virus. And it also helps hugely with influenza. So, think flu, think about, how we can help prepare for that. And so the bipolar ionization is going to be a huge tool in our risk mitigation. Next slide, Eliza. Thank you. Right, so the question around the dates. So we're targeting as hard as anything possible, October 26th to affect all 3 schools. What does that mean? Aspen High School and Aspen Middle School will both present shortly on their hybrid models, but the hybrid model is more of a schedule than anything. It's 50% of the students are on campus and 50% are off campus at any one time. A week, B week. We're going to continue to have Wednesday as a remote learning day, at least through November, and students are sorted by last name, A through K, L through Z. Mr. Bastian will talk about returning Aspen Elementary School to full in-person, especially if the air quality can be maintained and even increased with the bipolar ionization. And we'll get to that shortly. So actually, we just got to it. So Mr. Bastian, could you talk a little bit about where you are with your school?
I'd be happy to, Dave. Good evening, everyone. So we're starting our 5th week in a cohort model. We're practicing social distancing, washing our hands a lot, and wearing masks. We've not had any significant issues regarding mask wearing. Our kids, teachers, and families all understand the importance of mask wearing. Attending to the details of our plan has been extremely important to help keeping everyone safe. Our students are having lunch in their classrooms and enjoying world language instruction, PE, and environmental sciences outside. Music and art are taught remotely. The system remains a fragile one. Last 2 weeks, we had 2 staff members out and we had to scramble to get their classrooms covered. No substitutes picked up the postings. The process to a full reopen requires multiple steps. The first step is returning K through 2 teachers back to their spaces here in the elementary school. Then our 3rd and 4th grade classes need to return to their spaces here at AES. It makes the most sense to coordinate those moves with the installation of our bipolar ionization system. That was the driver for us cohorting and working in small classrooms to begin with. I've spoken to both Liz and Sarah, and their return to in-person learning is not jeopardized by the few classrooms we use in their respective buildings. An entire school reopen follows the same framework of our successful cohort reopen. That is to say, self-contained classrooms, lunch in the classrooms, limited interactions with adults and other students outside of the classroom. Once we receive the directive, transportation routes will need to go back to the same routes that we had in the springtime, and our classroom schedule will return to what it was in the springtime as well. There are other changes. Right now, we have separate entrances for each one of our grade levels, and we use a process that we have to keep kids separated outside while they're at recess and at lunch. The cohort model has been really successful because we've been able to practice the 5 C's consistently. So conducting many of our classes outside, including specials and interventions, I think has helped us a great deal as well. So we're looking forward to the enhancements and the infrastructure of this building, along with the ordering of 15 portable bipolar ionization systems for rooms inside of this building that don't have windows. I think that will go a long way to increase confidence as we look towards making the next steps.
Thank you, Mr. Bastian. We will have time for some questions shortly, but I'd like to kind of run through the presentations, and that brings us to Dr. Mador. Liz? If you could share your plans with us.
Yes. First of all, we want to thank the parents for their questions, comments, and support following the AMS presentation last week. We were on the heels of a decision to open the schools to in-person learning and gave a high-level view at that time. We would like to provide more details this afternoon about what the AMS hybrid schedule will look like, with a focus on both contact tracing and educational practice. We want to start our in-person learning in the safest way we can. We're looking at 2 different cohorting models, which I will explain to you. Regardless of the cohorting model, the students will be divided into 2 groups, A through K and L through Z, in order to match the high school cohort model, so that students are not mixing cohorts on the bus. Only one group will attend school for 1 week at a time. These students will be offered transportation separate from the elementary school students. This means that our school hours will be 9 to 3:30 to allow buses to run a separate elementary run. Buses will arrive at 8:45 and depart at 3:45 every day except Wednesday. Wednesday will be a fully remote day, and all classes except community time, which is the first hour of the day, will be asynchronous to allow for teacher planning, team meetings, IEP meetings, and the like. Students in Group A will go to their assigned homeroom and remain in that homeroom with that teacher for the entire day, except for scheduled breaks such as lunch and recess. They will have assigned seats and be required to maintain social distance and wear masks at all times. Students in Group B will remain at home. This new cohort model will take place at the beginning of the second quarter, a time when exploration classes change anyways. The move from October 5th to October 26th allows us to finish this quarter with integrity, and we really appreciate the flexibility in that decision. We had originally thought that a concurrent teaching model would be the best way to allow for small cohorts. However, we learned through discussion and reading that teaching students at home and in person at the same time was not the best educational model. For this reason, we're considering a model that has slightly larger cohorts and has students either learning in school or at home, but not both at the same time. One group of teachers will be teaching kids that are in the building, while the other group of teachers are teaching the kids that are at home. These groups switch each week. students remain in their homeroom for every subject in order to avoid cohort mixing. One teacher then would broadcast their lesson to all 3 classrooms. And while that is still a concurrent model, there are teachers in those other classrooms to facilitate. All the teachers will be in the building every day, except for those with accommodations. Our teachers have expressed reservations about having cohorts larger than 13 in the classroom at a time. And they want to make sure that they can space kids in each room and that they have enough seating so that kids can be spread around the room. We've talked about around 13 per classroom, and that is, we've heard, more comfortable for some of them. However, if we keep the cohorts smaller, we will need to have the concurrent learning where half the kids are at home at the same time learning with the half of the kids that are in school in order to keep those cohorts smaller than 13. So we understand that some teachers have some discomfort with this, and we want to continue to work with them to find out how they feel safe, to help make them feel safe, to look at their desks and tables. But we do feel that the better educational model will be having the larger cohorts. And in addition, we see this as our first step towards mixing, rotating teachers through the classes, getting kids back into explorations. We want to see this as a phased approach towards having a normal schedule. The schedule will have 340 minutes of instruction a day. And I don't know if I can share my screen or not, but if I can, or Liza, maybe I'll just share this with you and then you can show it. It shows the schedule that I know people wanted to see. Eliza, if you can share that, it's at the bottom of that document. It says black start days. But I'll just start to talk about it a little bit. In the morning, we'll have planning for the first hour or so. Then we'll have the morning check-in. And then each period will be 65 minutes. And we'll go to 3:30 on every day, including Wednesday. And then Jason has a little information about our, oh, there we go. Thank you. All right, so that shows the schedule. An example is given for the 5th grade, and you can see how each of those periods will look and then where the teacher planning time will occur. Jason has some information about some of our recent test results. And if you want, we can show that to you now, or we can wait and until we get to the questions. Dave, what would you prefer?
Liz, we actually have a data presentation on the docket for the
Okay.
next board meeting.
Oh,
I'd like
okay.
to take every school through where we stand academically in one fell swoop. And
Okay.
I appreciate you folks being ready to go. But I think the next board meeting, if we can do a comprehensive update around where we are academically, I think that would be better. Right now, I'd like to just focus on getting your reopening plans shared and posted. So Liz,
So
is it fair to say that the PowerPoint that's in board docs aligns pretty closely to your overall presentation?
Is it the PowerPoint from the town hall?
It is.
No, that's one model, but we've now got this larger cohort model. So the schedule itself and the basic outline is the same, however.
Okay, good. So we'll get the revised PowerPoint or presentation up tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. Sarah, is there more? Liz around?
No, that's it.
Okay, good. And then Sarah, if you'd like to talk to us about the high school, that would be fantastic.
Sure. I'm going to share my screen. I'm not going to go through it in depth, but this is what I've shared with parents. But that can at least talk a little bit about exactly what it will look like. So let me just share this. Okay. So as Liz alluded to, there's a lot of vernacular being thrown around. And so the hybrid schedule really means that kids are in person one week and then learning from home the next. And then there's this notion of concurrent learning. And I think we can all do the research. It's not the best instructional model. It's hard, but we're going to work really hard to make it effective in our classrooms. So what we have coming up on October 14th, we're going to bring all 9th graders to campus. They're going to be here in the afternoon. We're hosting the PSAT in the morning. So we're going to get all 9th graders on campus. They're going to be, we're going to work with Reagan and have one bus run for all these 9th graders. They're going to be in groups of 10 with staff members. We're going to have them have appointed meeting places. We're going to show them the doors where they enter and exit, show them where all the classrooms are, and just really get them acquainted with the building. Then on October 26th, cohort A, grades 9 through 12 comes back. And we initially started with an A through K, this alpha cohort. But at the high school, it's a little more complicated because we have so many students and they are taking a variety of classes that then Josh Anderson, he deserves a big kudos for this, and Becky Oliver got together and Josh wrote a program that actually helped us balance all the class sizes. So if there were 22 kids in a class and the alpha split ended up being, 18 and 4, we tried to balance it. We kept in mind that there are siblings in the other buildings and it really didn't move them. Our ESS students will remain in a cohort, so that's going to be a little bit different with the alpha as well. So students will attend classes Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday if they're in person. Wednesday is going to be that remote day. And here's a copy of the schedule. Okay. So the way it works is that we're going to start off with office hours. So these would be virtual for any students needing support. We feel like the students commuting to school are probably not going to use these, and that makes a dedicated time for those students who are choosing to learn at home or whose week it is to get extra help. The classes are 85 minutes. There's a 40-minute lunch period. Students in 2nd and 6th period will be eating in their classrooms. I'm working with Tennille to figure out an ordering system. We are also trying to figure out for teachers that want to take kids outside, how that can still be an enjoyable time. What we will not have is a commons filled with 200 kids. Wednesday, we're going to do something a little different than what we've been doing. Kids, it is still an instructional day. This is not the day to go do all the dentist appointments. They still go through all 7 periods in these half an hour, but we're going to use it to have it be very targeted and differentiated. So students, we run a DNF list every Monday. So any student who's on the DNF list will be required to meet with a teacher or case manager or interventionist for extra support to get them up to speed. Many of our IB classes are going to use this as dedicated live instruction time to meet their IB minutes. And then any students working on a CAS or an EE, this will be a time for those IB students to meet with their advisors. It's also time for the MTSS team to do any kind of dedicated one-on-one interventions. And then our special service providers actually don't have time throughout the day to meet with students. So OT, SLPs, and that would be a time for them to do that as well. We're adhering to the district model of an early release so that we have PD time here built in. And then of course, we're going to start with a quick staff meeting, and that's the only time we would meet as a staff. This schedule does a couple different things. We increase our instructional minutes. It allows us to have less frequent class changes. Students at Aspen High School will be moving from class to class. The largest cohort we aimed to have was 13, although we do have 2 groups of 14, but they are in larger spaces. Becky and I have measured out all the classrooms and have a template for how to set them up so that they are 6 feet apart, and then you can actually move a table and have triads of students meet and still be 6 feet apart. This schedule will also allow some of our athletes who have maybe a 6th and 7th free period for high level competition to have more time to practice, whether it's ABSC or ballet or horseback riding. We do have some of those unique times. We do have to have 8th period for jazz ensemble and our post-sec, and we have a couple kids doing Spanish, IB Spanish A. On Tuesdays, this will give them a dedicated time to meet with those teachers. Everybody else will report to crew, and this will be a combination of clubs, student-directed crew time, and study hall. I have to have something for kids to have on campus that ride the buses because our buses do not depart. For those students who have a free 7th, we're not going to probably make them come back for this day, for this period rather. And then on Fridays will be dedicated crew time, and that's where we're going to get together and do that social emotional piece, do team building, do daily check-ins, where we can look at students' grades and make sure everyone is up to speed. So that's our schedule in a nutshell. I hopefully haven't left out too many important details. The only other important things to consider, oops, sorry about that, is what instruction will look like. And this is what we're really going to be working on in the next 2 weeks. Obviously, students on campus move from class to class, students at home are virtual, and then students may opt to do all virtual learning. At this point, we have 70 students confirmed that they will only do remote learning from home for various reasons. That's out of the 300 people that have responded to our survey. We're going to try and make sure we can account for everybody. When we consider the way the instructional work, there's the notion of the flipped classroom where everybody does work at home. So you've watched a video, you've read something, and then you come into class ready for discussion. Teachers can then have a discussion either via a whole class Zoom, or they can allow students at home to have a discussion via Zoom and students in the classroom. That's that concurrent piece, and they'd be going back and forth. There are going to be times when classes are going to be via Zoom for everybody, depending on what they're doing, even if they're in person. And then the real concurrent learning would be that students at home are watching and listening to the modeling, the demonstration, whatever it may be, that the direct instruction that the teacher is delivering, and getting the information that way. My hope is that teachers are going to have to play around with this depending on their content area and the lesson of the day. Another option that's creative is splitting the class into 2 smaller instructional units. So those students who are online from home have some time where they can go work or problem solve and then come back. And again, it's going to have to be kind of playing, I wouldn't say figuring it out, what works best for students, teachers, and the content. They will all need AirPods, earphones, something. And then here's what a classroom will look like. So you can't really tell, but these tables right here are angled. And so we've made sure that there is 6 feet any which way you go, and that you can actually turn a table so that it'll be in a group of 3. So you could have kids having a conversation with their masks on and remain 6 feet apart. I think the safety plan, Dave's talked about all the stuff that we're going to do. It's no different up here. That's the county things. We are going to think about some social emotional support. We do have students that are having some higher levels of anxiety about coming back into the building. So we're thinking about how we will support them. And Allison Daly through Pathfinders has been a great partner. So we're going to make sure to work with her. We also have the resiliency assessment that's already allowing us to understand the targeted social emotional pieces we need to deal with. So I'm going to stop sharing there. And I think that covers the key pieces. I think the staff here are excited to have students back. Certainly they are anxious about the quality of their instruction in a concurrent model. They feel like doing, all Zoom or all in person, right? These are easier and more effective ways to teach. So it's going to be a learning curve to make sure that it's meaningful for students at home and meaningful for students in person. So I think they are anxious about that. Jorge is going to have stickers on all the floors. The hallways will be divided, so kind of like driving, there'll be a center lane. We will have custodians wiping down those high touch areas. And then, working with Elise, I think all teachers throughout the buildings will be given the same safety protocols, the things that they've requested. So like I said, I think people are very excited to welcome kids back, but there is a level of anxiety about the sheer numbers of kids that high school teachers will see. But we are working really hard to ensure that everyone feels safe and that their rooms are set up, like I said, to maintain that 6 foot of distance. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Very thorough and well thought out. Thanks to you and Becky and actually everybody, all your teams, for doing such a good job wrestling with this. I have a few more slides I'd like to run through quickly before we take overarching questions, and then we can go from there. So Eliza, if you would be so good as to dive back into my PowerPoint, I'd greatly appreciate it. Great. Well, almost great. There we go. All right. So dates in the short term. The principals pretty much shared most of this information with you. We won't belabor it. I do want to say again that we're going to have a district town hall next Monday regarding opening. And again, if we don't get to all the questions tonight, please lodge them in the chat box. They are being curated, and we will build the district town hall around the questions and concerns that are coming forward. So the next slide, challenges and decision points. Before I dive into this piece, I do want to thank the Aspen Education Foundation for their phenomenal support of reaching out and saying, let's eliminate barriers to opening. I know we've ordered just a whole lot of plexiglass, and a lot of plexiglass is going into a lot of classrooms, face shields, PPE, that sort of thing. So can we go back a slide, Eliza? So, okay. So in the challenges and decision points, there's a lot of questions about what guidance to use. We're using the Picken County COVID meter at the moment. And basically, they have 14 different metrics that go into building that. And so that is the best local guidance that we have around, where things are. The thinking around opening, staying open, possibly pivoting to remote. If we're in the blue zone, which is known as comfortable, or yellow, which is where we are now and have been for 4 or 5 weeks, that's the cautious. We continue to open schools, more students on campus. We are, as you know, using that phased opening model. Orange means hold, don't add more students to the campus, and red means pivot to remote learning. Some of the challenges that we face is some of our classrooms are really small. And so getting 20 kids into the classroom and maintaining the 6 foot remains a hurdle. And part of the problem that we have is, Colorado Department of Education says you don't have to maintain 6 feet and that you can do it safely with 3, especially if you have the mask. The other challenge that was brought to my attention today is that, county numbers for opening are 50%. And I believe that that is so that we can actually open schools, but we're checking that as well. There's a number of detailed procedures around various practices, like say, for instance, toileting or getting resupplied on cleaning supplies. So those detailed procedures, we'll have those articulated hopefully by Friday. We can have those on our website if anyone wants to read them. They are sort of an organic thing. By that, I mean, they are evolving. And that's one thing that the elementary school taught us, was that these things will evolve over time. So even though they will be articulated, there's a distinct possibility that they will evolve over time. Okay, next slide, please. Schedules. We've talked a lot about schedules. Many people are like, well, why are we still closed on Wednesday? And, we're not closed on Wednesday. There is still remote learning going on. It's synchronous and asynchronous. That is occurring, and that is the expectation for our students. We are going to be using that time fairly aggressively. And it's going to be around, remote teaching, content development, and other related subjects to help teachers be more effective, to develop teacher capacity. Another question is, what about calendar? There's a lot of days that students aren't actually in school, and that is under review for more learning opportunities. And, we may be bringing forward to the board at the next board meeting a request for a calendar revision to increase more teaching time, actually. When would this end? When would we be thinking differently about it? We have said all along, we're going to continue to monitor COVID numbers in the community. Would it be ideal to be back full return learning by November 30th? That is an ideal. That is not carved in stone. That is an ideal that is aspirational. But if we stay in yellow, if we as a community continue to work to lower the COVID numbers and that sort of thing, then it's a possibility. Could we do it by November 30th? Possibly. Do we have some things that cause some concern to superintendents and staff alike? Absolutely. We have, the fall break, long weekend coming up. We have Halloween, and we actually have Thanksgiving prior to November 30th. So historically, Pickens County's numbers have ticked up a little bit during holidays. So that's something that we're going to have to watch and monitor and be very mindful of. And there will be lots more communication coming out around the holidays, around how we can try to keep our schools open and even get back to more fully having all our students back on campus, ideally. So next slide, please. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. I hope that answers many of your questions. It's great to see all the principals are still here. So at this point in time, I know we've gone over our 20 minutes, and I will gladly sacrifice most of the superintendent's update so that we can stay here and spend some time in what has been the focus of the district, really since I got here. So.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
What did the slide mean? County numbers are 50%. I just didn't understand what that.
So when you look at the COVID meter, restaurants are open at 50%. Places of congregate gatherings are greatly reduced. They're at 50, like in houses of worship, they're greatly reduced. They're like at 50% or less. So that's what we mean by the county numbers are at 50%. If the county's open, and it's a very real question, if the county is open at 50%, why would we be open at 100%? I believe, and it's the strategy that has been shared with me, that they're at 50% in the hopes of getting our schools open more fully.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a couple of questions, as always. So first, thank you all. It looks like, we've had a lot of work done on this, and I think we're making a lot of progress on designing and articulating a plan. So my first question is for Chris for AES. I just wanted to be clear. When we move back to 100% in the classroom on the 26th, we are not doing Wednesdays. Is that correct?
Katie, that has not been determined yet. So right now we're looking at both a 4-day and a 5-day.
Okay. So that is still an open item that wasn't clear which way that was going.
And maybe this is also something I've heard back, and maybe you can help us understand this, Chris, and everybody, because the question has been like more operationally, or what's the need really driving those non-in-person days?
The original reason behind the non-in-person days was for deep cleaning of the schools. We're still using a lot of that time for professional development around developing capacity. We don't need all of that initially, but we think that we can continue to deliver, and I'll turn it over to the principals because each of them have some thinking around that time as well. But originally it started out around deep cleaning for the schools. We know we don't have to fog schools anymore, or unless there's a case of COVID. We don't have to do that as a matter of course, but we are increasing surface area, and we are increasing, trying to do some more focused deep cleaning on those days, as well as the professional development. So principals, do you have some more thoughts around the Wednesdays?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been safety and health. It's been the driver for that from the get-go.
And I would add at the middle school with teachers, since we're not having kids pass from one class to the next, teachers are with kids pretty much all day. So it's planning time, community time, and as you were saying, professional development, and then our meetings. We have, we won't be able to have those meetings during the other days of the week.
Okay. And
I
just to
also
help,
think, could I just say, and additionally, there's the transportation piece, Jonathan and Katie, with early release. Reagan can't run all the buses at one time. So I think the idea of getting us all back open and then having that early release on a Wednesday, it was really hard to think about how we would be able to transport everybody at the same time, to still allow for that district PD time, so that you have some of that, vertical articulation time to work on those content areas. So I think that was a concern. It's a lot for the high school. It would be a lot for kids to roll through all 7 periods and have that much contact. It's just a little bit more chaotic.
okay, and maybe just to try and help people understand and make sure I understand, during a normal school year, during the day, the teachers have time for these other things, either professional development or planning, that is baked into the daily normal schedule. And with the change to these kind of back-to-back schedules, all that goes away so that they no longer have it during the day. Is that a correct statement for the most part? Yeah, okay. And then with the Wednesday, in addition to the deep cleaning, is a way to compensate for some of that. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's also lunch. I mean, yeah, I think so. But I think the idea I know at the high school, like the idea of a remote day was really to, it's such a short amount of time, right? That to use that to better do interventions with kids, meet kids where they are, and ensure it was a really good way to kind of take that break. I think there's also the social emotional piece of the kids who are at home on screens. That means they're on a screen all day, 5 days a week. This at least can give them a break where they can have shorter, one-on-one meetings with staff. So I think that's probably part of it too.
I think something else that's important to consider is we've learned down here at the elementary school is our teachers are doing 2 jobs where they used to have 1. they have to teach the kids in front of them and lesson plan for them, and also try to prepare an engaging amount of lessons and work to be done at home. And additionally, we didn't know when we went down this road if we'd be shut down right away based on public health conditions. And we really knew we needed to ramp up, and it's still a work in progress, but to get our remote learning in a more effective place as well. So that's really important part of the PD that occurs on Wednesdays.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts, Chris, about, you said the decision hadn't been made about Wednesdays yet. So I guess 2 questions. What will inform the decision on AES when they go back, all the students at the same time, full board? What will inform the decision about whether or not Wednesdays are in person? And secondly, I'd love to hear about early release and whether our traditional early release model in a year where we've had fewer instructional hours might be something that should be reconsidered once we are back in, full board in person to make up those instructional hours for the elementary school first.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's the instructional hour piece. There's the teacher planning piece. Remains the questions about the upgrades to this building. There remains the question about, and Dr. Baugh touched on it in his PowerPoint, about social distancing and how that would work in a building like this. And so I'll be working closely with Dave as we kind of look at the merits of a 4-day versus a 5-day. In terms of getting rid of early release, that's something I would need to think about.
That's fair. I'd encourage us to think about that on a short-term basis, possibly as a methodology to make up perhaps some of those instructional hours that we have clearly lost from the schedule, certainly, to date, just doing the math. So just something to throw out there that I'd like, you all to consider. Because I think I've gotten a number of questions from parents about this, of how are we possibly learning the same amount when we're not getting the same amount of instruction? And I know I've asked that question of everybody every time, and I'm going to continue to ask that and challenge that in terms of making sure that every kid will have a full year's growth throughout the year. So that's, just something out there. I do also have some questions from on the high school presentation first. So Sarah, thank you for that. So 13, 14 kids per class. How many classes is a teacher teaching? Unique classes. So how many kids are they seeing in a day on average? I know not everyone has the same number of classes, but.
Yeah, let's go. So everyone teaches, sorry, I'm getting bad feedback. 5 classes plus crew. So they're going to do 6 out of the 7 once a week. So in a typical day where there's 4 classes meeting, let's use 10. So you might be in front of, let's say it's going to average out to 10. So you'd be in front of 40 kids. And then the next day, we'll do 10 more. So 70. So when I think about those cohorts, I think about the fact that a teacher would be exposed over the course of the week, right, to maximum of 80 students.
Okay. So then my question goes back to the middle school, which is, if we can have a model in the high school where we're talking about that, why do we need a model in the middle school where they're only seeing 13 kids? And my concern comes from here, and perhaps I heard this wrong, so if you'd speak to this as well. From what I heard from the presentation, Liz, it sounds like the kids are going to only have 1 live class per day, per day, because the rest of them will be projected from another room. So I would love some more clarity on why the difference within our school district between the different schools and how we're mitigating risk for these kids and the teachers.
Sure. I want to first go back to your question about Wednesday. And one thing on the middle school model, we have Wednesday as a full day while we're in this hybrid schedule. So they'll be asynchronous all day long. And then as for the different models at the different schools, you know, the teachers have different comfort levels. We've been working very hard with our teachers who feel very strongly about the cohort size. And we have, while the high school has departments and standalone content areas, our classes, as you know, are teams. I mean, the 8th grade is more similar to the high school. But our teachers just didn't feel like they were ready to have contact with 40 to 60 kids. So we started small. We're trying to take steps into a larger cohort size. But you're right, the first phase of this would have one live class. So if you were in a math class, you would have your math class live. If your homeroom was language arts, your language arts class would be live, etc. However, the world language and exploration classes will continue to be remote because they see so many students. So that's our first phase of this. And we want to, you know, get the kids in the building, see how we can safely break out into smaller groups from these large groups. We have plans to have kids in the core area doing some of their explorations and some of their support classes. But we see this as a good first step, knowing that certainly our goal is to have either teachers rotating through a group of kids and teaching. So the math teacher will go to every, you know, group of kids, or having the kids rotate. But the comfort level it's something it's pretty big at the middle school.
I would challenge that this needs to be about the education for the kids. And I am not comfortable calling one live class a day when they're in school full-time in-person learning. It's not. It's in person in the classroom for 1 hour period, or 1 hour and 5 minutes, whatever it ended up being. And I would challenge us to call it that. I don't think it is. I think it's remiss to do that. I don't think it's fair to the kids. And I think it's absurd, frankly, to the children. It's not meeting their educational needs of in-person learning. And so I take great exception to this model. Is not what I'm hearing from parents and from kids that they want. And I urge you to consider our students' education first and foremost.
Yeah, well, I think we share your concern and certainly want to build the best program we possibly can, given some of the constraints that we have. So this is the model, bringing kids in and making sure they're having some social interaction and some real-time learning without having to have kids and teachers exposed to these larger groups of 60 plus kids.
Well, if I could just say a couple things, I would say this, that just from my preliminary work at the middle school, the thing that works really well is there's a grade level team there, Katie, so they do have the possibility of doing that. Now, to your point, they will also be able to rotate through those cores very rapidly, but they can experiment with that model for the first week or two of doing that distribution and see where we are. We can move up to the next stage of having a rotation through the core, but ultimately it's going to be a smaller cohort than the high school is going to see, because it's a grade level team versus a content level team. The high school doesn't have a choice but to go through that many people and have that large of a group size, versus the middle school and the elementary school being grade level teams have the option of having a much tighter cohort and still having the rotations. The real rub here would be with the exploration classes later on, would we be able to do that? Because there's a cross contact between grade levels and the cohorts that would occur. But right now, I think as far as the cohorting goes, this would be a great way to keep this school with the best possibility of being open and not having to shut down large groups of students as they're going through it. So I think that was the rationale in creating. I understand your point of view, and I understand what you're seeing there, but I think that this is a great first step to getting to a full rotation.
I think you are going to find a large number of parents who think it is absolutely ridiculous to send their kid for a full day to interact with a teacher for an hour. I think it's ridiculous. And language arts and explorations aside, let's talk about the core academic classes. I don't understand why we can do it safely with the high school teachers, but don't feel that we can do the same thing safely with the middle school teachers. And I would love an explanation of why we're treating different teachers differently. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't think it's going to make any sense to the community.
Well, one correction, they're going to be with a teacher all day, but they're going to be in a self-contained with that one teacher. So they'll have a live teacher, and that we feel like is a better model than having kids at home on Zoom trying to learn while half of their peers are in person in the school. So
thanks, Liz. I think we should go on to other questions. So that we've heard the concerns here, and we'll continue to talk about that as we plan. But other questions or comments from board members?
I just wanted to understand better what is the driving concern in trying to understand the cohort. So if I understand right, so the kids are going to go to a classroom with one particular teacher, and that teacher will be in their room with the kids the whole day, but will only give 1 hour instruction as Katie was discussing. But then what's the concern versus the other models? I mean, what's holding us back? Why can't we move the teachers? Or
it's just sheer exposure to the number of kids. But just to be clear, I mean, the teachers, these are licensed professional educators in the classroom with kids all day. They're teaching their content for 1 hour, but they're facilitating the content throughout the day. And our teachers have been encouraged to think about lessons that have an asynchronous piece of it, a live piece of it, a small group breakout. I mean, there's going to be a lot of facilitation and learning that will go on in those classrooms. And we think that that model allows the teachers to not be exposed to the 60 kids, and then to not have the 60 kids kind of crossing through each other. But certainly that's where we want to get to. We're not there yet.
So what will your metrics be to determine exactly when you are there?
Well,
how will we know when we're ready?
Part of it will be where COVID is in our community. I mean, we're hoping that by maintaining these smaller cohorts and not exposing kids to multiple peers, that we can continue to contain COVID in our community. But we're also looking towards our teachers and towards AEA for they've been integral in the planning of this, and their voices have been very important as we flesh this out. We've also looked at models from other schools to build this model.
okay, but so I'm trying to understand here, sorry. So the concern is that I, as a teacher, and I'm assuming in the current thing is I'll be in a room with 20 kids all day long, versus some other system where I would see 3 or 4 groups of 20 kids, and then thereby have seen a larger number of kids. Is that okay? So just trying to understand, like, it's just like if it was a restaurant, then I'm trying to keep it to that only 20 people go to the restaurant a day, as opposed to having 100 people in the restaurant.
Yep.
Okay. And so, but since, and I'm just trying to go back maybe to like the science and the stuff behind this. I mean, isn't the greatest concern being in contact in close quarters with,
But it
it's not so much about the numbers, but
It
oh,
also
well.
affects who has to quarantine, right? How
Mm.
large a group.
So yeah, so that's what I'm trying to get to, what's really driving, because, okay, so it's a
that's a
cohort
factor.
and if we have to quarantine 80 people instead of 20, then that's what's driving it initially. But it sounds like it's really not that, it's that the teachers are much more concerned about the actual number of students they're seeing. So I'm just trying to understand so that we can, figure out kind of how we're going to continually move forward, and kind of getting to what Katie is saying, what are the key, things that we need to keep checking off so that we continue to get back to the normal model.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. The concerns have to do with quarantining and being away from the student. So, there's a lot of factors, and I think those metrics need to be fleshed out so that we certainly have some dates that have been posed.
Well, okay, I want to just say one thing. There's something that's really important that's being missed here too, that I just think that's really important for the board to understand. Number one, if we were able to get into the class size model like that, if we were to do the rotation through the cores, like is being proposed at some point. Right now, they're staying in one class, but they would do the rotation through the cores. What's best about this model is it would not be a concurrent learning model. What would happen is you would have students in class with their team one week and they'd be online the next. You wouldn't have the cohort half online, half in the classroom. So that's going to be what makes this advantageous to a pure content-based model like you would see at the high school. So I think it has advantages in doing that classroom model. I think what the board is taking exception to is in the first phase of the model is that the students would be placed in one cohort, not do the rotation through the day. Am I accurate?
Yeah, and Theron, just so I'm clear, so in the model that was proposed, where there's larger cohort groups, you aren't doing an A/B week on, week off schedule. That's all the students in those.
No, you'd be doing an A/B week on, week off schedule, but what you would not be doing is having half the kids at home while the teacher's teaching live at the same time.
Okay.
It would not be a concurrent learning model.
Got it.
You would actually have the kids in class, we're all online. Kids in class, all online in the A/B rotation, which works with that, which I think is a pretty solid pedagogical model in comparison. So
explain to me how it works when you have one science teacher and one social studies teacher in 7th and 8th grade. Who gets the science teacher? How does that work? You don't have everybody qualified to teach everything according to how we've been teaching it for so long. So
the rotation is just like they do a quarter of science and they do a quarter of social study, which is how the middle school has ran its schedule for a long time. There'd be a rotation between them.
That's not what they're doing now. They're doing 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. But then the idea of, so what's the decision process on this 2 different types of models that you're talking about? It sounds like you're leaning toward one, but kind of confusingly presenting both cohorting models. Which one are we using? Or if we don't know, when are we making a decision and what is going into that decision making?
The thing is we're trying to figure out with the cohorting model that's moving forward, we're trying to figure that out tomorrow. The idea of doing the on again, off again week with that was posited to us on Friday. And so that's what we're working through. We think it's a better model. And that's one of the things we're considering today. And it just hadn't been presented to the staff yet.
But the high school again is going with a concurrent model. So why do we need a different strategic approach for different schools?
You've asked this question a couple of times.
I can just answer that. I mean, Katie, at the high school, we had no option, right? There are so many, we are, like I think Theron said, we have content level, teams. So you have English, you have science. And so there actually isn't a way for us to do smaller cohorts. So we're kind of forced into that. I would say that our teachers at the high school share some of the same concerns that the teachers at the middle school do, which is that idea of more exposure to more people. And, you know, if we do have to quarantine, it's going to be a much larger ripple effect, right? If there were a student sick at the high school, that would be at least 80 students and 8 teachers who have to go home for 2 weeks.
And I think,
So that's, I think, we just don't have a choice.
yeah, and I think that's the other part of it. So this last, we're going to be a lot more inured to closure at using that model at the middle school, and would have I think, and I can't emphasize enough the strategic advantage of not having to do concurrent learning in the classroom.
So, I think it's been good to kind of have this conversation and hear the concerns and the pros and cons of each model. I really appreciate that.
Mhm.
I feel like we should move on to other topics. Looks like Dwayne has a little something to say.
Yeah, I just had one clarifying question for Dave. Dave, recognizing obviously all the various derivations, if you will, on the delivery models that are being proposed. Obviously, you've spent time with district and schoolhouse leadership and see both the similarities, but also the differences. Just for point of clarification, I assume you and Theron have probably vetted this and obviously, tugged at some of the more burning issues. So where do you stand? I suspect you're behind it and you need some time for some additional detailing. And that's in advance of the town hall. Am I correct with that assumption?
You're absolutely 100% correct with that. There are no best practices for this at this point in time. I want to point out that, the overarching goal is to safely get students and staff back onto campus. And we are building the airplane as we fly instructionally, right? So schools are doing the high school model. I think, the middle school has put an interesting twist on some models that are being used around the country. I think there's solid pedagogical reasons behind both decisions. I want to point out too, that yes, we're fleshing out some of the really gritty, nitty details over the next week, which will be public information Friday, Monday. We're going to try for Friday, but maybe it'll be by Monday. But, we're going to be evaluating this whole process all along the way, right? We've been holding in yellow for 4 weeks. We ticked up. We thought we were going into orange. We dropped back into yellow. Yay, that's a good thing. We're hoping we can hang in yellow. We're hoping that with the bipolar ionization, our kids will be healthier and staff healthier than ever before. We hope. And the science seems to suggest that it will help. But, we're talking about calling the ball again, 4 weeks after we open as to what we're going to do. But, Chris will tell you that you learn a lot every single week you're in hybrid. And, so that's really where we are. We're building the plan. It is grounded in the CDC checklist, like I opened with, and we're continuing to try to move forward and grapple with some of these issues, right? But from a teaching and learning perspective, neither model's ideal, and but both are grounded in the thinking of the teaching staff that are going to be executing them. So Theron and I have spent a lot of time talking with Liz and Jason, and they're talking with the staff a lot, and I'm kind of right there with Theron that it's a good plan to get us rolling, to get kids back on campus, to get staff back on campus, and we can continue. And again, with Aspen Education Foundation's phenomenal help, we're continuing to try to make our teachers feel safe at a time when there's a huge amount of anxiety around this. And yes, it's about kids first, and our goal, and that's the reason for this, is we want to do it right for the kids. We want to do it right for the families. That's why we pushed off of October 5 to try to do it right and to try to do it fully as we can at this point in time. So that's kind of where we are. And, we're going to continue to update our Corona hub on the website with great regularity. That's what I was talking about with Liz, fixing her presentation to reflect her presentation. So.
Thank you.
I have two more questions. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Wait, Dwayne, I think
I'll be brief here. Dave, I'm wildly impressed with the level of additional confidence and detail and disclosure. That really helps to build confidence. You know, it's not perfect, but it's definitely starting to build confidence for the community. I'm not saying it's over. I think this is a good start, and definitely, personally, I'm gaining confidence that we're going to be able to execute at some level of accuracy and precision. I do want to say this. I want to underscore 3 times over the town hall meeting and suggest that you do a couple of them over the next, as many as you need and that the community needs. Those are super important to continue to build confidence with the broader community, in these troubling, issues. So appreciate that. And Katie, back to you. There you go.
I agree in the town hall, but they need to actually be town halls, not lectures. So
right. Q&A. Yeah. Q&A.
Yes, we need to listen to the community, let them ask questions and answer the questions, not just lecture them on a plan. 2 questions for you, Dave.
Real quick, we had purposely disabled our chat because we had a Google form for questions, because we knew this was going to be a touchy subject and that there had been some poor behavior by parents in chat in the past. So we thought it was a good way to get questions and answer them. And so we shouldn't have called it a town hall, but I think kind of.
Well, there's a difference between a chat and Q&A. So, but 2 questions for you, Dave. The first is, when should we expect to see a draft plan? And I know you're still working on the draft plan for the hybrid opening, but I would love a due date for a plan for a full reopening for the full district. If we don't have a plan, we will never make it happen. So that's the first question. And then the second question is, I would love for you to speak. I've had numerous questions. We've had conversations, but we have not talked about it in public. I would like for you to comment on testing, COVID testing, and where, if any place, we are on that in terms of working with AVH and PITCO, and what I would like you to articulate what we're doing on that, because I have a number of questions and we haven't really discussed it in a board meeting.
Okay, thank you. So to your point, I did put in my PowerPoint November 30th as sort of another time where we would be looking at possibly the full reopening. Again, I will always say this, contingent upon COVID-19 levels in the community. We do routinely consult with Pickens County Health. Obviously they review the data for us and help us think through our decision-making process, So I've written down November 30th as an ideal goal and have stressed this evening that we will continue to monitor and evaluate as we move up to that time, both the pedagogy as well as the epidemiology, which those are really big words for a 5th grade school teacher. So I'm really, look, every single teacher I talk to wants to be back with kids. They do. They also, their situations are a little different than, some of the folks. So that's why we're trying to layer our mitigation efforts, and we are doing it aggressively, and probably as aggressively as any school district in Colorado. So yes, we can provide a full reopening plan, and it looks like what we're talking about for April. Okay. It feels like it's, April. It looks a lot like the October 26th plan, except with more kids. Okay. So once you have your first plan, they don't change a whole lot. Okay. Now for testing, we've been pushing hard for testing for a long time. Pickens County Health is trying to pull together a big project with multiple entities participating. And so that being said, when you get multiple entities, things slow way down, it seems like. And we have a real sense of urgency, and I think it would bring our staff a lot of peace of mind if we could get to routine, regular testing. So I talked to Dave Ressler today, and I said, look, it's really, really urgent for us. Can we begin exploring options in addition to Picken County Health? And so there's a couple of districts in Colorado that are doing testing, and we're reaching out to them to try to find out how they're doing it. I know some colleges are doing testing, and it's hugely expensive when you test everybody, including students, every single week, right? I mean, like, even on Aspen level, I think it's hugely expensive. Like Colgate College is spending $10 million on testing, right? That's $10 million. So we are looking into it. There are some machines that are on the market, but given the high levels of uncertainty in the testing, I'm trying to get some medical guidance around it. But I think it would be hugely helpful if we could test every staff member once a week. But again, that's Dave, the 5th grade school teacher, going, wow, I think that would feel really good knowing I don't have COVID. But, I don't know from a medical perspective if once a week is enough, because some of the colleges that I've been reading about, they're testing kids 2 and 3 times a week. And then when they get back from a holiday, they're testing 3 times a week for 14 days at least, right? So that gets really expensive. And the numbers for an individual test is around, but on Friday was at $300 a pop. So that's kind of breathtaking when you take it to scale. So are we looking into it? Absolutely. Are we looking into it very firmly? Absolutely. Do I have a really good answer to a really good question? I really don't at this point have a good answer to a really good question. And yeah, I thought, we could buy a machine, and if the swab was $5 or $6 and Elise could do it, why not? But it turns out that machine has a medical protocol to it, and it's more complicated that, and it turns out that the swabs are more expensive than $3 or $5. So, it's a big nut to crack, and I'd love to crack it for ASD, but haven't quite figured out how to do that yet.
I'd love to give you some help by maybe recruiting a couple of local doctors who are not tied up with the hospital and the Board of Health, or, that could actually serve as our evaluation team for this, so we don't get tied up in what everyone else is doing. I think it would be great to sort of take that off on the administration's plate and have some experts work on it.
As I said to Dave Ressler, we're not opposed to joining the Picken County Health Department's efforts. In fact, if we could downstream join in and leverage multiple organizations working together, that just makes a world of sense. But clock's ticking. And so, there's a real sense of urgency around trying to solve this one. So, boy, I'd love to have a little help with that. And, maybe I should have, but asked for that. But, this is one of those things that is emerging and growing as we move through things. So, and that's actually part of what we've learned with opening the elementary school. A lot of stuff emerges and grows, and stuff that you're like, yeah, we're going to do it like this. Yeah, that doesn't work so well, but this does. So, if we could do something like that, that would be great.
Thank you.
Susie, did you have any questions or comments? I haven't heard from you.
I wanted to point out that there is a significant false positive rate of almost of any of the best tests out there. False negative rate. So let's say the false negative rate is 15-20%, where we do all these tests weekly or 3 times a week or whatever. And until we have a really, really good test, we're going to be saying people are negative when they're actually positive. And there's nothing we can do about that right now, except to keep that in mind, that not to place too much confidence in the outcome of these tests. should we be fortunate enough to get them. That I just wanted to make that comment.
Dave, do you have any other?
That's that, just to that point, Susie, thank you. Yeah, we do recognize that. You know, and that is one of the concerns because people's behavior is affected by their test results. And, you know, there's nothing worse than, you know, people who think they don't have it, proceeding as if they don't have it. And, you know, we're not quite sure how to identify super spreaders. In fact, we really don't have any idea. But if a super spreader tests false negative, it could be really tough. So it's a definite two-edged sword, the testing piece, and an expensive one. But, you know, it does help move sort of the comfort needle a little bit, I think, and it might even help, you know, our colleagues in public health if we were doing that and could find some actual positives. So, right, that's it for the school opening plan so far. There will be updates to our Corona hub with great regularity over the next week or two. And again, 5 o'clock next Monday. And then as you're continuing to watch our board meeting, feel free to use the chat feature to list your concerns or questions, and we will try to tailor the town hall to those questions and concerns. And we will, you know, group them by category as we move forward.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Mhm.
We're going to move on to our public comment. And I'm going to work hard to try to keep these, if we could keep everybody's comments to about 3 minutes, that would be great. And maybe try not to repeat what others have said. And I think I'd like to start. We had a student with a video. Eliza, is that right? Ella White.
Correct. I'll put those up on the screen right now. Hi, board members, staff, and parents. My name is Ella White, and I am a 7th grader at AMS. I am presenting this video because students should have a voice in whether we go back to school or not. It is not safe for students or staff in the middle school to be in school in person or on a hybrid schedule. I have high-risk members in my immediate family, and if I go back to school in person, I would be putting them at risk. As an over 10-year-old, I can get people sick, get the virus, and be affected the same way adults can. We should not get ahead of ourselves. We can barely keep the elementary school open right now. My mom, the AES music teacher, is having a hard time teaching online because for a while they said no art and music, and they are not supporting them enough. My aunt, an AES 4th grade teacher, has an 8-year-old and is putting him and her husband at risk by teaching. She is finding it hard to support kids at home and at school at the same time. She wants to try to find a solution, and I admire her for that. My mom has worked tirelessly for AEA every day. Kay Eggson, Stephanie Nixon, and my mom are trying to fix the problems that the principals, vice principals, and superintendents need to solve. While online school is hard, it is better than being the school with all the COVID cases. Well, one problem with online school is that we are on our computers all day. We need more non-Chromebook time in class. I want to thank my ILA teacher, Billy Boyd, for having us read for 10 minutes in class almost every day, and all my teachers for having packets. They want us to be off the screen more, and I thank them for that. If we went back to school in person, I would not be able to take band and choir. Those are some of my favorite classes. Soon I'll be taking 3 0-hour classes, band, choir, and advanced math, and I want to do all of them. If I go back to school in person, I will not have the option to do all those classes. So I hope I convinced you not to open up the middle school or high school right now. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ella. I think we'll go to Fiona Androlatis. Are you here? Fiona, are you here? Tara Nelson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Tara.
Hi, I just wanted to give a bit of gratitude on World Teachers Day to all of our educators, and I wanted to express just a few concerns and sentiments. I have been a member of the reopening task force for probably, I don't know, the last month and a half, and I feel like we've been working diligently as the only task force member who's a parent. There are a lot of opinions, and I don't want to repeat everything that's been said, but we did get a survey that was sent out to our community, and I feel as though those responses were given timely. We had 698 responses who 91.4% of them said they would send their child back to school in a hybrid or in some sort of situation entirely. So I think those survey results are valid, and I think they just show kind of where the sentiments of our community are. I know that my kid, who is in elementary school, enjoys his person days, and when they're home, we adjust accordingly. But I do feel that our community is being resilient. I do feel that our task force has done, a lot of work and behind the scenes, what the teachers are doing in addition to their online teaching and what they're trying to do with the scheduling throughout elementary, middle, and high school. We've had the buy-in with the public health department. I just see on the school board website, there's new, they've just released new protocol documents from the public health. So I think we're all heading in this planning moving forward new normal and embracing that with the metrics behind it. I just wanted to support this slow phased approach. And I wanted to give thanks to our community for everybody's steadfast involvement in keeping us safe and keeping us moving forward. And I do want to actually share the sentiments behind Katie Frisch and emphasize that trying to maybe work on a full Wednesday would be phenomenal for those kids to get in those instructional hours. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. Krista Geisel, are you here?
It's Diesel.
Sorry.
It's okay. I won't repeat what Tara said, but it's similar to Tara. I just wanted to say thank you all so much. I have 2 elementary school children. They are really loving being back for the 2 days. They can be back. And I really just want to thank AES from the bottom of my heart, because I just feel like what you've done is above and beyond. And I'm so appreciative. I wanted to mention too, as a physician in the Valley, that there was a letter sent out by all the pediatricians in our entire, most of the pediatricians from our entire Valley, expressing this dire need for education and school reopening. I just have to say that mental health crisis is also a major public health emergency. And the more we can do to support our children academically and in school, the better off it's going to be for families in our entire Valley. So thank you all for all your tireless efforts, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Krista. How about Dan Pearl?
Hi, everyone. This is Dan Pearl, math teacher up at the high school. And I just want to raise some concerns that were brought up at our last meeting, because it seemed like none of them were really recognized or let alone addressed. And first of all, I appreciate that our opening date has been pushed back, but there's a bigger picture here that I want to talk about. And educators are getting slammed. We're getting slammed in the press via email, and we're looking for the board to support us. And frankly, we're not seeing it. And then this isn't a teacher versus parent issue. I want that to be very clear. We want the board to look at us as partners, understand that we want nothing more than to go back to school as normal, but we also intimately understand the realities of what that entails. And aside from just kind of feeling a level of distrust right now, there have been some really concerning actions that need to be addressed. Like last 2 weeks ago, the board reviewed a document called Reopening Plan Part 2, and it had upended the guiding principles of our reopening plan. Right in August, the primary principle was that the safety and security of students and staff is a primary goal, whereas in September, now in-person learning is given equal importance to safety. And that's not okay. It's not okay with me. Nothing is more important to me than the safety of my 2 children. And I know everyone in this room would say the exact same thing, right? Not even in-person learning. And you might say, well, we can have in-person learning and safety at the same time. And that may certainly be the case, but I need to know that when and if safety and in-person learning come into conflict, that you're going to choose safety. And by rewriting our guiding principles, that has come into question. Another thing, there was a glaring omission in phase 2 of our reopening plan. In August, we had a guiding principle that said decisions are based on current science and are not political decisions. So that's fully absent from phase 2 of the reopening plan. And at best, this is a huge oversight. At worst, though, it's a conscious effort to put the safety of our students and our staff into the hands of people with a political agenda in mind. Believe me, I would love to believe that that is not the case, but why else would that guiding principle have been removed? Why did the superintendent propose these new principles? Why did the board accept them? Right? Why has the board shown no concern for the fact that there's no district-wide comprehensive safety plan? Right? In the presentation that we saw just a while ago, here's a quote: "Deep details are currently being fleshed out." It is October 5th, right? Deep details are now currently being fleshed out. This is precisely why I'm concerned that the district just isn't prepared to do everything necessary to keep us safe. Another quote from the presentation from just about a half an hour ago: "Detailed procedures about how the COVID meter impacts reopening are going to be articulated on Friday or maybe next Monday." I mean, it's October 9th, October 12th. Like, I'm glad these things are starting to come together, but I'm here just to kind of explain to you where this distrust is coming from. And it's because we are so late to the game with these crucial steps. Like, why are we just coming to this in October? It makes me wonder, if we didn't raise these concerns, would we have any of these things in place? Would we be doing this in December? So I'm just hoping that you can understand why there's a lack of trust at the moment around how this process is going. But like, I'm pleading to you guys because you can regain our trust. And here's what I would suggest: rewrite the guiding principles to account for safety as the primary goal. Renew this board's commitment to making safety decisions based on science and not politics. It seems crazy that I would have to say that, but when that guiding principle was removed, it called that into question. And then let's put into writing crystal clear indicators as to when it's safe to move from one phase to the next. And frankly, I don't think it's sufficient to say the coronameter is in yellow, so we're good to go, right? Like Susie pointed to rising case count, rising positivity rate, and we haven't seen the coronameter move in 4 weeks. Like, that should concern us, that maybe we should add some additional metrics to our decision-making. And obviously it's very complicated, but the community deserves to know how this decision is being made. And we need to get those indicators in place. And that would go a long way to regaining this trust amongst, for me personally, and I think for a lot of educators in general. So thank you for hearing my concerns.
Thank you, Dan. Georgina?
Okay, this actually is a perfect segue. I am going to follow up on what Dan said, and I have some of the same concerns that he speaks about, but from a little different angle. I am really concerned overly about the kind of divisiveness between the school community and the community at large. And it seems to be apparent in so many different ways. When I hear the comments in the board meetings that sometimes go on that might be adding to this divisiveness, it's really hard, because I think some things are taken out of context and then put into the community, and teachers are being fired upon in all different places and in all different ways that are super uncomfortable. And so I did talk about delivery a little bit in my last comments at the last meeting, but now I'm actually taking it one step further and just trying to encourage the board to think about policy governance again, like really looking at and understanding kind of their role and I should say your role in all of this. I read the board governance piece that's on the website, that's on your web page, and it's perfect in terms of trying to understand like where the lines are between really looking at policy, which obviously doesn't exist in COVID times the way we want it to, but really kind of trying to find the line between making something feel like policy versus personal. And I think that's what's coming out in the community. It feels very personal. And so what Dan speaks about with teachers not trusting and feeling so unsupported, I was just, I hear it time and time again. And I think one of the ones that was the most telling lately was a teacher crying about something that was said, and it wasn't to her, but it was indirect and it was felt in the community. And it just it really just touched her to the core. And so I just kind of wonder if the board can work a little bit about in trying to create that support system that Dan speaks about, to make it feel like we as a school community are all one, as opposed to literally feeling like there's a line. So it's just kind of that focus on policy governance again, and trying to, really revisit how that can be a part of the process again, so that it doesn't feel so personal, because it's really very contentious right now in many ways. Thanks.
Thanks, Georgina. Alex Tarika.
Hi, my name is Alex Tarika and I teach 7th grade science at the middle school. I am speaking on behalf of the 7th grade team. So we first want to thank you, the board, and the community for understanding that we as a middle school needed more time than transitioning to hybrid learning on October 5th afforded to prepare for a safe and educationally successful learning model. Since the September 21st board meeting, our team has spent collectively over 100 hours on top of our current teaching workload, both planning and meeting to prepare for a successful transition. And in keeping with the district's priorities, our planning conversations have been centered on keeping our community safe, while also striving to provide the best education possible for our students. We wanted to share with you some of the details of our conversations in the hope that you might understand a little bit more fully why preparing for the transition requires so much time, because we need more time, you guys. And I'm not saying that necessarily we need more time than October 26th, but we need to figure out how we can have more time in our current schedules to make it happen. So after the September 21st board meeting, we began brainstorming, the 7th grade teachers, what would be required of us in order for hybrid teaching to be successful. And we identified these needs with approximate times. 3 hours for us to be trained in learning COVID health protocols so we can be prepared to respond to situations that may arise in our classroom. About 5 hours to actually rearrange our rooms for social distancing. 5 hours to set up our tech to teach the class, to teach to our class, and to teach students online, and we need time to practice using it. About 4 hours to develop core-wide classroom and online expectations, and to also role play and practice reinforcing those expectations. About 5 hours to plan with the 8th grade for floor level expectations, maybe with the rest of the middle school as well, and maybe the high school. 5 hours to create videos to teach our students about these expectations. About 3 hours for us to role play all of the situations that we might find ourselves in, so that we can anticipate where trouble might occur and how we can troubleshoot that. About 7 hours to build new schedules for all of our students, to group them into cohorts that meet each student's individual needs, because this also involves working with support personnel to basically put students in appropriate groups so that they can be academically successful. About 5 hours to actually assemble all the materials that we'll need and create kits, individual kits for our kids to use when they're in class. And then another 4 hours to plan and deliver another back to school night so that our parents and families and students can understand what to expect. So we've started working on these tasks during our planning periods, but we've really just scratched the surface of what needs to be done. And we are pretty concerned that we'll realistically be able to accomplish all of this in the next few weeks without more time carved into our schedule that's designated to planning for the transition. And we feel we need more time than our planning periods allow for this for a few reasons. First of all, using our planning periods has been impacting our ability to provide quality instructions for our students now. I have not been able to spend the time I need to plan my lessons, to grade and provide feedback on assignments, to have our teacher meetings, to respond to emails, reach out to the students who are slipping through the cracks, because I'm putting so much of my planning time into this. We also need longer sustained periods of time than just our hour-long planning periods allow for to accomplish some of the bigger tasks that require collaborative planning across departments and grade levels. So we currently have one workday, October 22nd, that's built into our schedules that we can use to truly focus our time and energy on this to get ready. And we don't feel like this is enough for us to prepare adequately. We think we need more work days built into the schedule before October 26th. We're also concerned about whether we will be able to provide high quality instruction for our students within the hybrid model that the school is proposing. And I think this has been discussed plenty. But we're also worried that due to the safety constraints of having no more than 3 adults in a room each day, the core teachers who will have students in their classrooms, we won't be able to have a planning period, and we're worried that we won't be able to provide good instruction for our students without more planning time in our daily schedule. So the last thing I wanted to say is that we really, as a 7th grade team, I think as an entire school community, we recognize how hard this has been for everyone, and we know families have been struggling to juggle supporting their students with remote learning while also working their own full-time jobs. And we also understand that so many students are suffering from feelings of loneliness and isolation as a result of remote learning, and that there are many who are struggling to achieve academically in the online learning model. We teachers want to support our students and families as much as we can. And we are worried that if we rush into transitioning to hybrid learning without a very detailed plan and thoughtful practice protocols in place, or if we transition with unsafe levels of COVID transmission in our community, the district will find itself in chaos, and there will be greater levels of uncertainty for students and families. And our schools may become a hotbed of virus transmission. So these are sort of the what keeps me up at night. So we want to thank you again for considering the challenges that we as a school community are facing, and for valuing our perspectives as teachers as we try to provide a safe and effective educational experience for our students. We as a 7th grade team welcome any follow-up questions or conversations that you, the board, might be interested in having with us in an effort to increase communication and understanding between the teaching staff of the Aspen School District and our Board of Education. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. It looks like Fiona has joined. So would you like to speak now? You might need to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. So sorry I'm late getting on this, but I am Fiona Andrulitis. I'm a full-time working parent of 4 children. I have a high schooler, 2 in middle school, and 1 in elementary school. I am a former science teacher also, so I do understand your concerns about not going back. I want to give a shout out to all those teachers who have really made this work. In-person learning, especially my son's teacher, Allison Wilcox. She has just been so amazing with him. He's been going in Mondays and Tuesdays, and when he comes home, he is a completely different child. He's smiling, happy. He wants to get in his backpack and get his work package out and show me what he's done with her. She's an amazing teacher. She even wanted to have a Zoom meeting with them on Saturday. And he was all like up, dressed. Come on, I want to see Miss Allie. She said that she cannot wait for him to be in 5 days a week. He has another teacher, Carrie Devlin, who has some unfortunate circumstances going on with her health. She cannot be in school in person, and she has just been amazing tutoring him on Zoom, but of course he wants to see her. He's like, I really want to see Miss Carrie. And I said to him, look, she will be back in there in January. I'm a parent that is willing to go in there, take 1 day off a week to get in there and substitute. I have already applied for that. I've already applied to be a bus driver. I have to go down to Glenwood, get my heavy vehicle driver's license. These kids are suffering. When I became a teacher because I love kids and I put children over myself, and their education comes first. And I think a lot of parents feel the same way, and our kids just aren't learning at home. I think the majority of teachers do want to go back. I hate to say it, but you're making it very hard for our parents to get in there and really help you guys out by saying you're not qualified to teach the kids. So many parents want to step up. And once you fill out the application, a resume and academic transcripts, a cover letter, we need to come up with all of this. We need to come up with 5 references. You're making us jump through hoops to actually help out. This community wants to help out. We have a very educated, talented community here. We want to help you teachers, even if it means getting in the classroom and you teachers can Zoom from home because you don't think it's safe. We'll do it. We'll step up. We want our children to be educated. I was talking to a working mom this afternoon, a nurse, OBGYN nurse with 3 children of her own. She doesn't have a choice but to get in there at Aspen Valley Hospital. She said to me, I wonder how my patients would feel if I said to them, let me do a Zoom call while you're giving birth, right? How would that work for them? It just doesn't work. I'm sorry, online education is not working for my kids. And that is all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Tamara Wilson.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak again. I think I mentioned last time I was going to show up every time and remind us that this is a deadly virus. I think there's been 10,000 more deaths since the last meeting. We're well over 200,000 deaths as a result of this virus. So I think that that's something that we cannot forget and pretend does not exist just because we're not feeling its immediate impact here in our community. That being said, I feel like I have to share that I am a parent. I am a voter. I am a taxpayer. And I think the fact that I'm a teacher does not make my voice any less important than other parents in the community. I really think that, I've always been really proud to be a teacher in this community, and it makes me really sad how divided it's become, because teachers do love their students and they do want to come back to work, but they want to do it safely. Coming to work should not cost me my life, should not cost my children their life, should not cost their grandparents their lives, when we have an alternative. This is a pandemic. It is a once in 100-year event, and we are in different times, and therefore we need to operate differently. The idea that we're just going to go back in full person and go back to normal is crazy when we are talking about a global pandemic where people are dying. I cannot stress that enough. I love my students and I would love to be in person with them. My job is much easier when I'm in person. That's where I get my energy from. That's where I think my power as a teacher comes from, is being with students. And it is a struggle right now to try to recreate that. But every teacher I know is fighting that struggle. And I take it very personally when people say that we are not educating, that we are not fulfilling our obligation. Teachers are not an economic chess piece. We are not a political chess piece. We are here to educate children. And that is what we are doing every single day. It may be online and it may look different, but we are fulfilling our end of the bargain. We really are. And we're just trying to do it safely, not just for us, but for our students as well. I know that, a lot of us are working parents, and believe me when I say that teachers do not leave students' problems at home. We take every student with us when we go home. So we're not just carrying the burden of our own families, but we do think about the students that are struggling. We do think about the students that may socially be kind of on the fringe right now. Those thoughts come with us every night we go home. That's not something we don't think about and we don't consider. So I hope that parents understand that this is not about trying to deny your kids something. We love your kids. And like I said, we bring their struggles with us every day of our lives. It doesn't go away. It doesn't stop because the clock stops for us. And we are just trying to come back to work in the safest way possible. I recognize that hospital workers don't have an alternative. There's not an alternative. I recognize that restaurant workers are not in the same room with the same kids all day long. there are differences and we're all making different sacrifices. And teachers are making sacrifices. Like I said, teaching online is not my wheelhouse. It's not my deep, passionate love, but I'm going to find a way to make it my deep, passionate love if that is the best and safest way to educate children right now. I guess really the only thing I can say is that, we are working really hard, teachers, administrators, educators. We are not falling down on the job. We work really hard every day and we are fulfilling our promise. We are educating children. Our promise is not to be an economic tool. It's not to be a political tool. Our job is to help students learn and try to inspire, and we are doing the best we can in a global pandemic. This is unheard of for us, and I just think that we need to make sure we keep that at the forefront, that this isn't us choosing ourselves over students. We are choosing students. It just looks different because we're in a different time. And I hope that we can recognize that we can all move forward and help students and help families without necessarily costing people their safety or their lives. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Mayor. Adam Good.
Hi, my name's Adam Good. I am a STEM teacher at Aspen Middle School. I want to address a few things. First, just I'd like to echo kind of what Alex Tarica was saying. I really appreciate and thank you for extending the hybrid date. I really think we need that time to prepare, and we need additional time, even more. But I appreciate you guys extending that date. Second, I've been in school over the past week or so, and I've been working with some students in person in small groups or just with individuals. And I do have to say that the exposure that I have is growing, and it is certainly a worry of mine when I come home. And it's something that my partner at home and I talk about, and I can see how that would continue to grow with those large groups. But what I really wanted to talk to you guys about was housing, and I wanted to address this last board meeting, but it kind of got pushed to the back burner. But I just kind of want to paint a picture of what it's like to be a new teacher at our school district. I'm in my 3rd year teaching at Aspen Middle School. I started out with 2 years of teaching experience, so I came in at the pay scale around $42,500. I currently make about $45,000, which you might be wondering how I live in Aspen making that much. And the question is, I do not know how I've done it. I've gotten lucky, and I've gotten a proper property management position where I was working an additional 10 hours a week for my housing. At times it was more like 20 hours a week. And you can imagine the stress that may have translated into my everyday life and even at school. But the other thing I want to kind of paint a picture of is, although the salary might be $45,000 and my paycheck broken up into individual paychecks is roughly $3,800, after deductions, I walk away with $2,700 a month. I currently am splitting an apartment with my partner, which makes it a little bit more affordable, but about 45% of my paycheck goes towards my rent. And living anywhere else that might be manageable, but living in a town where groceries are inflated, any social activity costs you roughly $100. It really starts to wear on your well-being. And with the stress of everything that's going on, and even before this, it's really, really difficult to live here as a teacher that might not have a master's degree, that might not have 10 years of experience, because I don't see a path forward to grow my salary or reduce my housing cost. When I'm in my 3rd year and people that are getting hired just this year are getting housing before me. So what I ask is that we can try to form or develop some type of housing committee that will address these issues and have a clear, transparent way of how housing is selected, and how we are moving forward with housing. I often hear, we have units available in Willits right now. I understand that, and they're about $400 less than what I pay a month right now. But that $400 to me is worth living in Aspen and not commuting every day. So it really is kind of a difficult situation to be in, where you're juggling all of these different dynamics. And I think there's a better way that we can go about this. It's either just increasing salaries or providing more housing. And I know that that's a big part of what the board is trying to do and what the bond is trying to do. And I appreciate that we're pushing forward with that. I just really think that if we want to keep good teachers here, we really need to address these issues moving forward, because at some point you start to question, like, is it worth it to be struggling to pay for gas to drive to work? So that's all that I have to say. And thank you for hearing me. And again, thanks for hearing us and pushing that in-person date back. It means a lot to have that time to prepare.
Thank you, Adam. Are there any other public comment persons that I may have missed? Okay, I think we'll move on. We've got our reports and comments. And 6.1 is our AEA update.
Susan, I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Can we make a comment? I mean, just one thing that concerns me in the public comments that was made was that we had lowered the priority of safety, that's a perception. And I don't believe that to be true. And I don't think that's ever been said by anybody on this board, or I've never heard it come out of Dave's mouth. And the text is a little different between the two plans, but it's basically number one is safety, and number two, an in-person is a priority, and we know it's better for students. So, I don't know where that perception is coming from. But I definitely don't see it in the documents that we've written. And so if anybody wants to give me feedback directly on why they feel that way, please write to me. Please feel free to call me. My phone number is on the website. I'd be happy to hear it.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, right back to the entire board. We talked about that 2 weeks ago, and obviously the presentation from Dave, there was a bit of a change of the priorities as they are identified, and that was pointed out last week. And there was it's fairly disappointing that gets hung out there as okay, so you guys don't care about it. It's not the case at all. In fact, like Jonathan just described, it's always been priority number one. In fact, we're trying to thread, multiple needles at one time in order to achieve the best interest for our community under the safest of conditions. And so in order to be trusted, one must first convey some trust. I'm trying, and I know the board's trying, and I know the superintendent and the district leadership's trying, but we have to pitch in and be all part of the solution, as opposed to trying to just point out deficiencies and shortcomings and timing. It's reminding me of the hours and the hours and the hours that my wife spent this summer, June, July, and August, in order to prepare for an online start, an in-class start, a hybrid up at the Aspen Community School. And I know, I've heard it 18 million times. Oh, it's a different condition. It's lower head count. And the fact of the matter is they developed a plan and they move forward with the plan. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're developing a plan together, not we versus them. Let me sharpshoot and critique. It's together. I thought that was always the kind of the guiding principle. We do things together. So I just will not sit here idly and let someone tell me that I don't care about safety. That is absolutely untrue and should be corrected.
Thanks, Dwayne. Okay. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much. Good to see 103 people on here. I apologize. The screen that I'll be reading to is off to my left, so I apologize for not making eye contact and not seeming that I'm a part of this. So on Wednesday, September 3rd, I virtually attended a webinar from the U.S. Department of Education on how to open up schools safely. This is new to the entire country, and education is going to feel and look different than it did before. The first step is accepting that it is not going to look and feel the same, and that this makes everyone feel uncomfortable. There were a few takeaways from the webinar. One key to opening was making sure the space worked, looking at the rooms and seeing how many people can be in a room distance apart and if there's proper airflow. After they made sure the space was usable, then schedules were created, learning schedules and cleaning schedules to coordinate with the movement. The last but most important was over communicating and on as many different platforms as possible. Weekly times for parent discussions, staff meetings, department meetings, and then checking to make sure that the message was heard by spot checking in with people just to make sure. Also notifying staff and parents what the weekly changes are. It was a big message that you cannot over communicate. Yes, it's always challenging, but you're always letting people know and making sure that the information is accessible. The more they communicate and the less upset people were by the changes in plans because they had information, even if it changed hourly or daily. So it had me start to think about our plan and that it's still in development. Many parents, plus a recent letter of support from doctors, have asked why we can't open up like the community school or Country Day. Both are in hybrid model, and to my knowledge, they are not going 100% in person. They are only seeing half of the students on campus at a time. They also have a student staff population around 200 people. And please know, at the Aspen School District, we have 2,000 people. The more people, the harder the plan is in this situation. Also, the public school provides more services than those other schools don't have to worry about high school at all. So we'd like to address a few points from the letter from the pediatrics. Number one, frequent hand washing. Please know that many classrooms do not have access to sinks, hot water, and some classrooms still don't even have soap. Social distancing. Most classrooms are not large enough to accommodate more than 13 students at a time. Facial coverings. Letters have gone home to parents expressing the fact that some younger kids are having a hard time wearing a mask all day long. And that this is just something as a community that we're all working on. Vaccinations. The school district cannot legally require students or families to get vaccinated. Screening symptoms at the door. We cannot screen in real time for systems. Screening would have to start on the school buses, and drivers are not medically trained professionals. And the drivers do not feel comfortable taking a thermometer and taking temps as they come in. All right, cohorting, children and staff. Cohorting is ideal for tracing. It is not ideal for instruction at many levels, but it is difficult to keep cohorts true when transporting extracurricular activities and siblings, yes. But we do need the cohorting for contact tracing, and that's the big part of that. The recent Paris survey also raised a few questions, and I did read through all of the responses. So one big question people have is, why wasn't this worked on all summer? We were asked to wait until the new superintendent, Dave Abbas, started in July. Plus, everyone was hoping that we would get guidance from the federal government, the state government, which was not put out until way late July or early August. When Dave did arrive, unfortunately, he was ill and he was not able to be at his full strength. And we all know it's hard to work at your full strength. Also, in the age of COVID-19, things just take longer to do. So plans were being developed by principals, as they are the only ones who are under contract to work then, along with building maintenance, who are busy cleaning, and a few office staff who have longer contracts. So the staff was called in during their vacation to help develop a plan. In the parent survey, educators were described as first responders. When I hear that, the first thing that pops into my head is first aid training. Check the scene. Is the scene safe? If it is, then you can help. If it's not, then call for help. We're calling for help. We need appropriate safety protocols and supports. We need a detailed plan, testing, and clear science-based indicators for when to open up to more and more students. It's clear. This seems to be the same need from the school board and from the parents. When we as a school district tend to neglect our buildings, last year in May, Gary Varga, our previous facilities transportation manager, presented a large, expensive list of maintenance that needed to be done. I know the high school staff and students remember attending school last winter with no heat in some areas of the high school. The school district purchased space heaters and had people watching them 24 hours a day to make sure we didn't start any fires. The elementary school has been trying to get our HVAC system fixed since 2011. After repeated requests from educators, the bipolar ionization installation is set to begin soon. And we want to thank the Board of Education for the funds to move forward with this. However, we may still have some areas that may not have heat in the elementary school. We often don't have warm, never mind hot water to wash our hands in the elementary school either. There are many, many issues with our physical buildings that are rearing their ugly head right now, but unfortunately, wishing them away doesn't make it happen. We need to accept the realities that our buildings are not up to snuff and that this is one thing keeping us from having a safe reopening plan. Remember that we are ranked 48th for state funding. We are almost the lowest state in support for public education. We can only fix our buildings when we pass a bond. Here at ASD, we do have more funding than the majority of schools in Colorado with our sales tax and our mill levies and our bonds, but we also need to take care of our buildings. Last year, we had an issue with cleaning supplies and people were hurt. People need to understand that cleaning a school isn't the same as cleaning your house. There are laws around appropriate cleaning products and procedures. Custodial staff needs training on procedures and policies, and they themselves need to be kept safe during a global pandemic. When looking at buildings, please know that the elementary school and our classrooms social distancing can hold about 13 people or so, along with the high school. I know some rooms at the high school and middle school are not much bigger. This is following the Pickens County Health Guidelines. So in a classroom, you no longer see students sitting next to each other. They're spread out. When I did a read aloud on the carpet, unless I used a document camera, there's no way the students could see the pictures of the book because of how spread out we are. There is not the group work that we have switched to as a society that we know is best practices for education. It's lecture style with interaction between one student and the teacher. Plus, students are washing their hands when you walk in the door, before snack, after snack, before touching any materials, after materials. You can no longer have a class bathroom break. Only 1 or 2 kids at a time can go while consistently working it out with the other teachers in your area, so you're not sending students at the same time to the bathroom. Please know that students who are back are not finding this year to be that much fun because they don't get to hang out with their friends, and wearing a mask all day is hard. And they can't even talk to their friends in another cohort in the school. There's a big push to get everyone back in 100%. We are all sick of COVID and want things back to normal. But what if this is the normal? There seems to be a push for some just to get back into the doors so we can feel like normal school, and then all the mental health and learning gaps will disappear. That would be great if that was the case, but these problems don't just disappear. The world is in a mental health crisis. School teachers, social emotional skills, and academics. We're not trained. School teachers aren't trained great in mental health, I hate to say. Most educators are not counselors. Right now, just as some parents are struggling as to how to help child through this pandemic, so are we as teachers. We are understaffed in our counseling positions, and we can't fill those shoes. We as a staff don't know what to concentrate on. We don't know in what order to do something well. You need to concentrate on one thing at a time. In a world of COVID-19 pandemic, we need to concentrate one thing. We are testing students. We are teaching students both at home and at school, trying to meet the social and emotional needs and keeping everyone safe. I can tell you, every educator I talk to feels like they can't do it all. In fact, Many are in tears every day because they can't meet the needs of in-person and online. Another issue we're having is when we have staff and educators that become sick. It's no longer if you have a cold, you come to work, or you stay home a day or two and then you go back to work. Because testing is so limited and often faulty, as we were even heard the false negativity rate, we really don't know who has COVID-19. So to be safe and to help stop the spread of the disease, if you are sick, you have to be out 10 days with a negative test, 14 days with a positive. This is extremely hard on staff. We know about the subbing crisis, and thank you to those who have filled out the applications. But it is not just the teachers who need subs. We're short on custodians because some have been ill and we are short-staffed. There were some areas that weren't cleaned for 2 weeks. This is not okay. This is why the staff wants to know what happens when we do fall short of staff and how that's handled in the department. What happens when we don't have enough bus drivers? We have this issue that's going to happen to us on Thursday. Do we call the parents and say, hey, we can't pick up your kid until we do a second route? What route? What route just doesn't get picked up? Who gets to be chosen on that route? We as a staff do not know. Hence, we don't feel safe when we don't know what is not expected of us. Do you know what the schedule is for how the day looks for a child? Do you know how the cleaning process? Do you know how many people your child or staff member will see in a day? What are the pivot points to bringing back students in the building? Are they based on science? The staff and public want to know. We need to use the data to inform instruction and create a plan that keeps everyone safe. And if you cannot answer the questions I just stated, ask yourself, is the plan enough detailed to keep your child safe? Education has never been harder. Instead of supporting each other in this crisis, the community is divided. We need our community to understand that we are trying to keep everyone safe, staff and students. We don't want to have the kids at home any more than the parents do, but blaming and bullying needs to stop. Teachers are getting unbelievable emails from parents, and we know administrators are too. And we also know that the parents are stressed, and we know that this is taking a big toll. So why does this need to be us versus them? We all need to be trying to do what's best for kids. And if you disagree with this decision, please keep us in mind to think about every person in the model, not just one person. AEA continues to push to set guidelines that will help keep staff and students safe. We need to concentrate on the markers and the indicators based on science to move from one phase to the next. We need detailed plans. We need more testing for staff and students. On-board members, one board member was quoted in the Aspen Times last week stating that educators think they need to be engaged in every aspect of the decision. Yeah, we are the educational professionals and we are the ones in the trenches. Of course, we need to be involved. That's how education has always worked. If you don't listen to staff voice, this is the way that we're trying to communicate. So thank you so much for your time and thank you for your dedication.
Thank you, Kay. Let's see, where are we here?
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
When I was at the school, I saw, while there might not have been a sink in every room, there was hand sanitizer in every room. So I guess I'm not sure in that particular point, is there something I'm missing?
So mostly in the elementary school, most classrooms in the elementary school do have sinks, but in the middle school and the high school, not all classrooms have sinks. And we do have a couple of classrooms in the high school that do not have soap dispensers. And they never have.
But the high school is not open for in-person learning.
No, but there are staff and there are students in there and they are working. So if
Okay, but
I
there's
would,
hand sanitizer in the hall, on the desks. I mean, every time I've
correct.
been there, I've
However,
seen it
Jonathan,
everywhere.
right. However, you do have to watch sometimes with hand sanitizer, especially with younger students, because what happens is hand sanitizer does have a high alcohol content. And so what you have to watch sometimes with hand sanitizers, and especially with young kids, they like to put their hands in their mouth a lot. And so what happens is if we're overly relying on hand sanitizer, there's also where there has been cases where students have become intoxicated because of licking their hands because of the alcohol content on hand sanitizer. So that's why the best case scenario is warm water and soap. And the second backup is hand sanitizer.
Okay, but, all right, I understand, but what you're saying then basically, you know, where the problem is, we do have sinks in those rooms in terms of what you said, kids putting their hands all the time and stuff. And I'm just trying to figure out if we have, where the safety issues are in here in line with, you know, what is it we're making sure that we're having people in a safe environment where they have access to this PPE, if that, I guess is the right way to describe it. So that was the reason for my question. Thanks.
No, it was a great, it was a great clarifying question, Jonathan.
Okay. Board members, this is our chance to update on anything else that we have, other committees maybe that we're on, or to update on things that we've been working on. So if you got a chance to fill out the Google Doc, that is in our packet and can be read online. And if you have any short comments now, we can go through those. Hearing none. Oh,
Yeah, I
go
just
ahead,
wanted
Susie.
to ask, so I had to miss the last task force because of a death in my family. And I wanted to, and then during this meeting, we got a message. Is the task force for reopening coming to an end? Is that, did we get a message during this meeting that it may be ending? From Theron, perhaps, or? Anyway, so we can talk later at the end of the meeting when we talk about our schedule about who's going to be going, but I don't think, so I messed up the sign up sheet because I was out of town and Dwayne and you stepped in and that was great, but I just want to make sure that enough people are attending who want to attend and we are signing up for task force reopening if we want a board presence there, but we can discuss that later.
Okay. Any other board member updates? Superintendent update, Dave?
Just briefly want to address a couple of things. To Susie's point, we are putting it on hold for a minute as we're working at the building level. And, you know, so we're trying to refine those plans to meet the standard that is, you know, we've been tasked with. So the task force reopening made, you know, we decided to open, we picked the 5th, we pushed back to the 26th, you know, so we're going, and that's why we got the task force on hold. I do hope that we can reconvene it eventually around a couple of different ideas that I think we need to be thinking about. To Kay's earlier points and several other people's points, this could be the new normal. So we need to figure out how to really adapt our schooling to COVID-19 and why not, right? Why not plan for that? And, you know, we didn't get a chance to do great planning like some other districts in July, but, you know, we can now do that planning. So to that point, I do think reconvening a task force would make some sense. So I did want to say that. I also did want to say that, you know, next board meeting, the 19th, will have a very, very academic flair to it. We're hoping to update the community on the status of the two sort of paper audits, if you will, in reading and language arts and mathematics. And we're also hoping to present to the community the effects of, you know, last spring's closure or, you know, pivot to sort of a build the remote learning on the fly. I do want to salute our teaching staff that have done a phenomenal job by all accounts of raising the bar for online instruction. So, but that being said, you know, we're still not quite where we want to be and need to be. So we will be presenting a fair bit of data you know, so all of the schools have been doing some testing, and in some cases, quite a bit of testing. So we have a pretty good sense of where our students are. And so we will be talking about that on the 19th as well. So that's pretty much the superintendent's update. At this point, I do want to say just briefly in item, I want to say 8.2, we will be asking you to approve the core collaborative. And I'll just talk about this now. The core collaborative, we're trying to provide sort of program agnostic professional development over time for mathematics. It's currently scheduled for those Wednesdays, but you know, there's some opportunities to think about it a little bit differently. But you know, and it's designed kind of a la carte. So if we don't use a piece of it, we don't pay for it. So it's broke out at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. And some further conversations with the high school, they're doing some professional development already, so that this might be redundant, so we could save some money there, but we will evaluate that anyway. So I am asking the board support around the core collaborative. It does provide, as I said, program agnostic math support for our teachers, helping everybody just get better at the teaching of mathematics, regardless of what program they're using. The second item I want to talk about is 8.3. This is sort of dual litigation. We talked about it very briefly in a prior board meeting. This is on the advice of counsel. We've joined sort of national class action lawsuit against the Jewel Company, and sort of, I believe their parent company is Philip Morris, because they fully expect Jewel to collapse under the weight of the lawsuits. I was startled and saddened to learn that Colorado is the #1 state. I mean, we're near the end of the list for funding public schools, but we're near the front or at the front for the use of Jewel products. And ski towns especially were particularly hard hit. In conversations with Mr. Mulberry, he informed me that it was a huge problem for him as a principal, and you know, for the staff. And, you know, they spent an inordinate amount of time on that, and so it would be it's a basically no risk to the district to join this litigation. There could be some benefits to help fund some remediation efforts downstream. So that is 8.2 and 8.3, and that sort of concludes my superintendent update.
I have a couple of questions, Dave. Just one comment on the Jewel thing. I just want, after having read the contract and all that stuff with the law firm, I just wanted to make clear to everyone, it's not a class action, it's a mass action. And the important aspect of, we have absolutely no risk to any operating funds whatsoever. We're not signing up with an attorney that we're going to have to pay unless the benefit from the mass action suit is enough to compensate them for their legal fees and some additional costs. So just want to make sure that that's clear to the public, that there's no risk. And there's also very little risk of time spent by our administrative staff as well. So it's not a time sink, which these things can be on the class action side, where you have to actually appear before litigation, before the court and testify and that type of stuff. So we don't have any of that issue. But then the one question on the core collaborative, reading through that stuff and their website, it sounds really interesting, but could you kind of help me understand how this places with all the other training and help and support that we get, whether, you know, that we go through so many different training things for staff that I'm not clear how this fits in, and if it replaces something or if it's an addition, and how much time it's going to take in terms of staff time. Just put it in context, please.
You know, we discussed it as sort of a principal leadership team, instructional team. The design is that we work with an independent very knowledgeable and expert in mathematics instruction. She's familiar with the many programs we do use. And we were very clear in designing the professional development that we want to work with, elementary, middle, high school teachers around the teaching of mathematics, because that's clearly a spot where when you look at our data over the years, we have some areas for growth. And, so great. Let's really take new eyes and take some time. And, we talked about, first Wednesday of the month would be elementary, second Wednesday of the month could be middle, third Wednesday of the month, for instance, could be high school. And then each month they have sort of a space where they get to have problems of practice around the teaching of mathematics, around structuring classrooms, differentiation, the teaching of algorithms, problem solving, and also has a very student-centered way of helping our students understand their mathematics regardless of the program. So by design, it's an independent sort of resource for our teachers and administrators to join them in this professional development so that we all become more knowledgeable about the program. Now, so for instance, I believe there's a lot of training going on in illustrative math. I've been told there's a fair bit of training going on, and that's, that's that lane for grades 5 and 6. This is in addition to that around good teaching practices, right? And so we met with the consultant and we discussed it with her at length, and then we put together this sort of model that kind of layers into our traditional calendar, frankly. And whether that goes away or goes away partially, will be a conversation that we have in the next week or two.
And does that tie into the curriculum audit as well, or how does that tie in? I know that's based on the content, but it's not just content, but how we're teaching. Is it together in any way?
It doesn't clash with it, and it merely supports wherever we wind up going, right? This is all around established best practices of the teaching of mathematics. The core collaborative is not weighing in on what should be taught when. This is more of the why and the how of teaching of mathematics.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when we were looking at the audits, I think you had this in mind as phase 2, that the audits would be phase 1, and this professional development would be phase 2 of your academic push. Is that
well? As we talked about earlier, everything in COVID has taken a lot longer. So the way I saw phase 2 of the audit is, well, and we're going to talk about the audit more on the 19th, but then after we get the results of the audit, then we circle our wagons and we, design the K-12 articulation, language arts and mathematics. The mathematics is such a hotspot that I thought we could start this as kind of a third rail, if you will, of just best practices, regardless of what the audit finds and regardless of where the audit takes us in terms of recommendations for, a mathematics program. Improving our instructional practices in the classroom, like there's no time like the present, right? I mean, like at all levels of the organization, there's no time like the present in exploring ideas, reflecting on it, trying and implementing them, and taking it forward. And it becomes a resource and a language. And we're very clear. We're not endorsing a curriculum because we have, 4 different math curriculums, say, and probably 3 different language arts at least currently running at the moment. So we're staying out of that, waiting for the audit and saying, okay, let's start here. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just one other question, Dave, just to understand the independence of this, as you talked about, because I know some of the programs that were brought up on some of the presentations that the math team gave were related to bodies of work done by certain academics on how math should be taught. You know, for example, Joe Bowler's work and that type of thing. Is this at all correlated with that, or is it truly just completely independent of any type of approach?
The consultant we would be retaining is very familiar with Dr. Bowler's work, but she's not like endorsing Dr. Bowler's work. She's using best practice from Dr. Bowler, and I think she cited 3 or 4 other top math strategists, theoreticians. I'm not quite sure what the word is exactly for those folks at that tier. So this is much more about really kind of engaging the students, helping them become responsible for their own learning, helping teachers help the students become more responsible for their learning, that sort of thing. And it's again, independent of, you know, that philosophy, except for trying to empower students. I'd say this is largely agnostic on philosophy as well.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks, Dave. The next agenda item is just an update on our sort of response to the DAC recommendations.
Sure. Eliza, if you throw up the slides real quick, we'll run through these. There's 2 slides. So there's sort of 2 main points that we wanted to respond to. The AMS leadership question. Mr. Mulberry has very graciously been working at Aspen Middle School over 2 days a week. Culture and climate is part of it. Communication is another. Supporting Dr. Mador and Mr. Thomas and the entire school is definitely part of it. They're working on reopening plans and quite a bit else. Academics and discipline procedures have been brought up, and you know, those are you know, working. Mr. Mulberry, Dr. Mador, Mr. Thomas, they're all working very closely together on those things. So I did want to respond to the DAC around that and let them know that, you know, we're really working hand in glove. And the key word in this slide is collaboratively around supporting the middle school, right? We heard the DAC and we're saying, okay, got it. We're addressing it, and we're gonna make this year super. That's our plan. That's our goal. That's our hope and intention. Next slide, please, Eliza. And then the principal search was also a big concern. We'd like to begin that in December with a posting of a vacancy. We'll do that at the national level. Dan Blumenberg, our new HR director, will be leading that work. He, in fact, I was on a call with him today, and he's very excited to be here, hopes to be here in plenty of time to beat his November 2nd start date. We intend to begin interviews in January, and ideally reference checks would be completed once we've gone through the process. And, you know, ideally we'd like to appoint a principal in February at, you know, in my mind at the latest. That gets us in early for a search, but not too early. It gets us January, February is kind of the sweet spot for school searches. And, you know, we will build a diverse team of stakeholders to assist with that process in keeping with the norms here in Aspen. So I did just want to share that with the DAC and the rest of the community, where we are and what we're thinking on at that point. Okay.
Yeah.
And that concludes the DAC update.
Thank you.
Dave, but just one more thing. The third point they had was the COVID-19 reentry plan for the district. That is on the website, correct?
Well, yes, we put the reopening plan on there. You know, this presentation from tonight will be on the website, And, they wanted a full plan for reopening. They said by November 1st, but, we have our plans continuing to grow and evolve. And, we're obviously trying to get kids back on campus on the 26th.
Thanks, Dave. Maybe we'll do a financial update and then take a little break, short break after that. Linda?
I think we struck the financial update from
Oh, did
this
we?
agenda. Things haven't changed much since
Okay.
the last 2 weeks. So, yeah, we don't have a financial update prepared at this time.
Okay. I had an old agenda, I think. Let's take a 5-minute break. It's 6:39. We'll come back at 6:45 and resume. So Susie, we're going to go through these policies next. So we're on, we're going to go ahead and get started. 7.1, we're reviewing these policies. You've
Great.
done a great job of getting the redlined copies so that we can look at them. And what I think I'd like to do is if we could quickly just go through, and if there are no questions about each one of these, then we'll just go on to the next one, and then just approve them all kind of en masse if we can do that. So GP-1 that had just a small change to the pronouns. Each individual should be accountable for his, her own actions. Anybody have a comment or question about that one?
I have one comment just overall. Is it possible that instead of calling them like GP1, GP2, GP3, we could call them by what they are? Like a name? So I know
you discussion or just always?
Always. Like, why these numbers that don't mean anything? It might be easier to remember what our policies are if we actually refer to them by, and I don't know whether there's a reason why we have to or not, but
there's no reason.
Because it's new to me. I don't automatically think GP2 is what it is.
Katie. Just put GP1 and then the title behind it, and then you're.
And that's how it's listed. It says GP1 governance commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we could refer to them as their name instead of their number, but yeah, I think that would be easier to remember them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments about that change? In GP2, governing style, there's a change for removing the specific book that would be given for board candidate orientation, and they would be provided access to all board policies. 2 or more board members will host an orientation meeting. Candidates will receive information around coherent governance, board policies, board monitoring reports, board responsibilities and roles, time commitment, etc. Any questions or comments about that change?
I thought, I apologize, I didn't get a chance to redline and remove coherent governance in that last line that you just read. And I don't know that it's for us. I'm sorry to do a last minute change, but I would take out coherent governance because I don't know that that is the book by those 2 other people. So I would just take.
There's a term that is policy governance. Which
right, we could put that in. I would be happy with policy governance there.
Why don't you just say governance and then wait?
Governance.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Then it.
Great.
All right, so Eliza, that change, and we'll vote with that change pertaining to our governance model, maybe.
Okay.
Board policies, board monitoring reports. Okay, committee structure. I had a question, Susie, about this, and I just wondered, your intent was to just remove DAC from this altogether?
Well,
or do we need to
so a couple of years ago, the DAC commitments were just described in the statute, and we didn't repeat it all the details of the statute in our DAC committee description in GP7. And then it was decided a few years ago to put everything that's in the statute in our policy, and to say what they do in January, what they do in February, what they do. It was overly, I think in retrospect, it looks overly organized. It's too programmatic.
I get that, but you've removed everything, including the membership, like who should be a member, how often they meet.
Yeah. So
what their role is.
So we could put back what we used to have in there before we added all the extra stuff, or we don't put necessarily everything that's in a statute in a policy. It's up to us whether we want to keep. it was unclear to me how many of these committees in GP7 are just required by law and are repetitive from a statute, and which of them were ad hoc committees and which of them are standing committees of our own desire, our own volition. And I didn't mention any of this in my prep work. I actually thought about it after I had deleted all that. I thought, well, maybe we want to keep, and then it just brought up all these other questions about which of these committees, the preschool, the FAB,
I would make a quick suggestion on this one. We need to change the FAB one as well. So maybe we take another shot at this and then make those changes as well. And maybe
And I
put
also
back
think-
in the basics of the DAC, like who the members are and those kinds of things that are actually in the statutes.
And I mean, we can say what it is that we expect the DAC to do, or what they would like to do, but if it differs from statute. So that's another, I think, consideration.
it's true, we do have local control of school board can ask the DAC to do different things from.
And I mean, the statute even actually has some leeway because it's mutually agreed upon projects or whatever. But I think it's not, I mean, rather than having to go to the statute and figure out what is it that the DAC does, it's probably a good thing to just have a general outline in here without all that detail. So
I
would agree with Jonathan. When we revamp the FAB, then maybe we'll come up with a more general definition of the DAC as well and change this policy all at once.
And just to be clear, on the FAB, that discussion has already happened at the FAB level, that they're coming back with an ask which things to include in their overview. So that's in process. It's not like it's going to be another year. It's more like the next board time we discuss this, it will absolutely be ready.
Good. Well, let's bring that back then. And maybe we can go back to the version that we had prior to all this detail about the DAC, and then maybe tweak it from there.
I
Does
agree.
that sound good, Susie?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay. So we're going to skip that one.
That's
The next one is GP7A, Committee Members Code of Conduct. This is just the removal of the item C, criticize privately, praise publicly.
Yeah, and I thought we could put, like Aspen leadership says, instead of that, they say be hard on the issues, not on the people. That would be a possible substitute there if we wanted to put something like that in there.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't understand what follow the chain of command means. I should ask Dwayne this one. In the context of board rules, because it's, we all kind of have one vote, right? So.
Well, I think it means we don't go down to, kindergarten and say, hi, I'm a board member and I want you to do this in your classroom.
But I think we already addressed that in another place.
Where is that?
The superintendent is our only.
BSRs. Probably in the BSRs, which are.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm just telling you what that means. I don't know that it needs to be here necessarily, but that's why.
Yeah, I'm curious where these came from and if they're similar to what we use in just the general context of meetings and what's on the wall in terms of, how to do a meeting, and why it's different than that.
Because these were probably written before those meeting protocols were posted, I would guess.
I just think we should be consistent with meeting protocols that we're using throughout the district and not necessarily reinvent, these were already invented, but not have different protocols for, we should all have the same protocols that we're following.
So do you want to rewrite this with the meeting protocols?
What do you guys think?
Robert's Rules of Order obviously guide our actual board meetings, business meeting protocols. That's pretty self-evident, and we abide by that.
Are you talking about the assume good intentions and
Actually, yeah, I
listen to
like those.
understand?
The seven-
There's some of those
yeah.
that are posted in the boardroom that are from a
Yeah, I just think we should be consistent and have the same things that we're using internally on the board with what the district is saying, how to run a meeting. I mean, it should all kind of be consistent and, you know, where all that stuff is, I don't remember exactly what's written on that. It's been so long since we've been, I don't remember exactly what it says, but it seemed like those were kind of the rules of engagement. And then we have rules of engagement, which don't match those. And it just seems a little silly to have different rules instead of just consistency around it, and to be clear that we're following the same rules that every other district meeting is following.
I also feel like we should include some of our values that we have approved in this, and make sure that they're included in this. So
I think there are other things in here that aren't just meeting norms, like maintain confidentiality, which is something that we have as required as board members for certain things. So
yep. So I mean, I'm pretty okay with this because I don't think it contradicts any of our meeting norms. But if we want to rewrite it, I would allow someone to take a stab at it and bring it back if that's what we want to do. Anyone? Or should we just approve it this change, since Susie has outlined that for us, and then we can look at it again at another meeting?
I think that's fine. I think down the line, we should, when we're back in that room following those things on the wall, we should look at it then.
Well, there should be a way to look at what's on the wall without having to have a meeting there.
Yeah, there should be. Probably not tonight.
No.
Post them in your living room. Put them in your living room there, Dr. said. It'll be great. Right there, the cool, comfortable couch. There you go. Love it.
Susie,
All right.
I can take a look and let you know exactly.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you, Liza.
Yeah, we could send pictures.
But at this point, we will approve this change, or we will vote on this change, and we will address it going forward. GP8 annual agenda planning. Susie has struck the presentation by a futurist. I always thought that sounded a little cosmic for my taste. So I'm okay with that.
Well, I wondered whether I was missing something. Is there?
They are an actual, they're sort of a scientist, I guess, but it seems kind of, I mean, we could put crystal ball in there. Should we do that?
So as long as nobody is totally attached to futurists, I wasn't sure.
No, I'm not attached to it. And then a change for a item can be removed from the consent agenda by an approval of 3 board members instead of a majority.
Well, I had tried to change it from a majority to 2. I recall several times having difficulty explaining, or somebody, one of the board members explaining quickly a rationale to pull something from a consent agenda. And I felt that if we could have maybe 2 people agree on that, it's a big burden for one person to try to explain a rationale in the brief amount of time when we're trying to vote on the agenda. I feel that it's too burdensome to try to pull something, to try to need 3 people to pull something from a consent agenda.
So you'd rather it be 2?
I would, yeah. And so it came in as 3 as a typo, I think. I prefer it to be 2.
Okay, so is everyone okay with it?
Yeah, I'm fine with this lowering of the bar. I just remember, a long time ago when I was in that seat, just last year, actually, we would be cool if one person wanted to. I mean, to kind of allow that conversation and not be so beholden to just kind of rote procedure. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I would
think we can
actually,
change that to 2.
I would prefer 1. I mean, I think it's valid if a board member has a valid concern and all it does is require us to discuss it right? Doesn't
Yep.
Yes.
mean anybody has to vote. It just says it moves from consent action item to a discussion point.
Yep.
That means it requires that there's a discussion about it. And I think that's a right that every board member should have.
That's
Okay,
great.
so
That's
So
great.
let's change it to an item may be removed from the consent agenda upon request by a board member.
And back to the futurist thing, that section, I'm a little confused about, like, mostly we hear from consultants, do we not? I mean,
We have had a, wait, that's in a different,
well, that's what I'm confused. What is this thing talking about? Like, for the results, demographers, advocacy groups, staff, and others? I mean, it sounds a little.
we have had reports from, maybe futurists, I don't know what their actual title was, but in the past, we've heard from some expert about where they think our population is going to go, what type of, are we going to have more babies, less babies, just for planning purposes. That's when I've seen it used.
That whole section is just for that? Like what, I mean, where does things like, we have the ability to listen to outside consultants like this core or collaborative if they're coming in and making recommendations for changes, that type of stuff. Is that in a different spot?
Well, this is I don't know why that's in it there, honestly.
I'm like really confused. Some of this stuff seems so random in this.
I know. And it's been years and years. I mean, if you look at the bottom, like this was first written in 2004. I mean, I don't know who wrote it or why. And I don't even know if that piece was in there then. But I guess what I would say is if we don't, I mean, the gist of it is we are going to put results policies and learning about things related to our results policies on our annual calendar. I don't think it has to say what that's going to include, really.
Yeah, I would think if we wanted to keep all of those, the demographers and everything, that we might want to mention educators at some point.
But it just says which may include. I mean, all this says is we're going to have some, when we
Education
plan our agenda, these are things to take into consideration.
Yeah. So it's not restricting us in any way. It just may be extra stuff. And
I just look forward to having a futurist come in sometime in the near future to give us some sort of prognostication.
Such a picture of a futurist.
Indeed.
But yes.
I love
Dave
it.
looks like he has a comment.
Yeah. Dave is looking
In
for
the
the
future,
vaccine
To speed
futurist.
things along, I would recommend you strike futurist, add administration. You're keeping your options open. I could see where a futurist might have come in when Colorado was adopting the Common Core and say, this is where we're going. We should be thinking about this. Eventually, there'll be something replacing the Common Core. In theory, your administration would be monitoring trends in education and could also present to that to you. But they're just trying to do that. Demographers are often helpful with as Susan pointed out, the trends around babies. Colleges are experiencing the downturn from 2008, and the futurists have been talking to colleges for quite a few years now, but we call those consultants. So there you go. There you go. But
put baseball coaches in here too.
Yeah.
I want to hear some baseball coaches. Okay, keep going.
So can we change it to presentations by administration, demographers, advocacy groups, staff, and others approved by the board? And then, if we want to really start changing a lot of things, we can go from there.
We could just say administration and others and get rid of all the possible,
Yeah, I think that's fine.
I'm not sure why demographers are that important, but they get their own line in our policies.
Yeah, I think we can make shorter policies all in general.
Yes,
it takes a lot of work. So how about presentations by administrators and others. Do we need approved by the board?
I think we have it, don't we?
I know, do we want that?
I see.
No, but we already approve it when we approve GPA, right? I mean, we say we want a presentation by this person. Isn't that?
Not necessarily, I guess, but I don't know that we have to approve anybody that.
Yeah, we could take that out, I guess.
Okay, so let's do it by administrators and others.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
And then number 4 on, that was number 2.
Yeah.
So number 4, I found that one of the few times we had a chance to discuss education or student learning or teaching or instructional program was when we pulled OE4, OE8, and OE12 from the consent agenda. I think that will change under Dave, under this administration, because I think we're already talking about audits and professional development for teaching the math. And so already we are talking about student learning and instructional program and teaching. So I feel less strongly, but I do think that we should pull out at least the last line that says, otherwise OE monitoring reports will be included in the consent agenda. Because I think we should decide if they're going to be in the consent agenda. If they happen to be on student learning or teaching or instructional program, I don't think they should automatically be in the consent agenda.
So it's fine to remove that last line, but then the first part doesn't really make sense, I think.
I would just suggest going back to what we said for the other one. If a board member has a concern about any policy expectations, that he should be able to put those in the normal discussion points.
I mean, do we want even anything in here about
Maybe just take out number 4.
number 5? Well, I guess it's number 4 now. Yes. Yeah.
Make number 5, current number 5.
Right.
Number 4 and delete.
Yeah, because that's the piece that basically put everything that was an operational expectation into a consent unless these certain things happen. And I think we don't necessarily want that. And we can choose to, but I don't think it should just be automatic.
Right.
Oh, and that was, it gave the superintendent all the power to say, oh, the culture's fine, so therefore it automatically goes to a consent action item, and then you're, as a board member, you're left without.
You have to
wait a minute.
really cause a ruckus to talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll just strike current number 5.
Current number 4, and number 5 will become number 4.
Yes. Okay. The next one is that last one. We're going to take it out. Or no, it's second to last one.
Second to last.
What was 6 on the one I have? I don't see anything.
There was no 6. We're changing what was 5 to become number 4, and we're deleting what was number 4.
Okay.
Or 6s.
Yeah, I don't know why there's.
You following all this, Eliza?
No more 6s for the rest of the evening. Let's keep going. Okay.
Here we
Rock
go.
and roll.
GP9.
Oh,
member
yes. the infamous
Code of
9.
conduct.
This is where we need to reel Jonathan in. Board members' code of conduct.
Under 3C, I would say be hard on the issues, not on the people.
You're right.
Yes.
No more shotguns. Yeah.
Yep. And I'm
Right.
fine with changing it to those words.
What is never embarrass us or the district? I mean, you can embarrass somebody by asking a question. So I don't know what that's trying to.
You want to delete that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So I'm okay with deleting it.
Yeah, I'm okay. It's hard to define.
Super.
I mean, there are many things that I could do that might embarrass. My kids tell me that I embarrass them.
Well, yeah,
very
wait a
often.
minute. I embarrass myself at least 3 or 4 times a day. So I should have long since been removed from this board. And
Yeah.
in fact, I relish the opportunity. All right, so there you go. Moving right along.
Okay. So we can remove that one.
I think that might also be in GP
The other
7.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
The chain of command thing is the same thing right here. That's where I saw it.
So Eliza, in GP 7, we want to not remove the embarrassment also.
A bit embarrass away, everyone.
So
go
why
right
do we
ahead.
have policies that are repetitive in two separate sections? Like,
One
Because
is,
one is board performance and one is superintendent performance. I
no, one
believe.
is board conduct and the others are committee members' conduct.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Alexa, we're deleting in number GP7A, we're deleting 2E. Never embarrass each other.
3, wait, GP, yeah.
GP7A, 2E, we're deleting. And are we deleting follow the chain of command 2L?
Well, maybe just clarify it saying something like, I don't know if you want to say actions or requests should be made through the superintendent. I mean, I think that's what it's designed to do is say, you know, everything needs to go through Dave or the superintendent. Go for it, Dave.
Thanks, Jonathan. I do think the chain of command, like a lot of problems and stuff, and this is actually written into my contract, like if there's a problem, you're supposed to bring it to me and I'm supposed to kind of work on it. That's what the chain of command means. Like if, back to Susan's thing about kindergarten, say kindergarten is, not that it would ever happen, but like a teacher, don't forget the grade level, might be sleeping on the job. That's my job to clean up. That's not your job to clean up. That's the chain.
Right.
And this is common board practice just to keep things organized.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go down that line.
It's good management.
Yeah. So it's just kind of keeps the board out of the weeds.
So let's keep it.
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to cost of governance, GP 13.
Check this out.
We're
Susie.
really getting after this one.
Go for it, Susie.
We're removing the specific reference to a book. We are we're not going to provide anyone with a binder, I guess. Is that for you know, just conservation?
Well, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Katie and Jonathan were given a binder in December. Were you?
It's all online. Don't give me anything with paper.
So I figured they didn't get it and they didn't miss it. And I think we maybe.
Yeah, I think it's kind of old fashioned.
Need to come into the modern world.
New board members will make an effort to become trained in our community listens.
I didn't know what our community listens was.
Well,
wait, why did you put that in there then?
Obviously,
wait, did you put that in there?
No, I'm questioning taking it out. Or
no.
Oh, that was already in there?
Yeah, it was in one.
It looks like you added it to me.
Well,
yeah, it looked like an ad. Yeah.
Yeah. I deleted it when I was meeting with Eliza, and I'm trying to see whether we got a little confused or something in the final product.
So I think it was also brought up to talk about what our community listens is, as it was a previous training that, that the staff and admin have taken, and kind of to put it out there.
Yeah, I think it's too specific. I don't think we need to say that's something anyone has to do.
Well, but it is, perhaps it's too specific and by labeling, because that is a particular, you know, platform that's offered here in the Valley and across, you know, across the country, right? It's a certain, you know, standard, but there are other collaborative based leadership models that are out there for the benefit of boards, the benefit of governing bodies to, you know, sharpen their skills in terms of listening and truly hearing, and then being able to find resolution on highly difficult matters. of which we just went through one about 45 minutes ago. So I think having something like that as a, it's our own professional development. And so that's what this is, cost of governance. We're willing to invest in some of that type of stuff. Maybe it doesn't say our community listens.
Well, I mean, I guess
the
benefit of our community listens is we have in-house training people.
Right.
So
are you advocating to keep it explicit as it is?
Well, maybe, yeah, now that I think about it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we do need to make a commitment and to invest in this stuff, and frankly, that's why this policy is here. It's to identify that the community will be funding some additional training and development so we can sharpen our tools as better, board representatives.
Right.
Then I feel like I'm not in compliance for my first 3 years. I still haven't learned what our community listens is, and I feel like I should be penalized because I'm not in compliance.
Well,
That's
probably
right. Got that right.
Your mentor should be penalized, like me.
Susan, I haven't done it either.
And, I don't know, maybe public embarrassment would be a good penalty, but.
Board work leadership is another great
Yeah.
in the Valley, for the Valley, collaborative leadership training program that helps folks perform better in these volunteer positions as board, members of a board of governors. I mean,
that's a much different level of commitment though. And it's also an application process. So
of course, it is. And that runs with the territory. I mean,
How
it
about if we
runs with
leave
the
it
territory.
generically that we should make an effort to be trained in leadership?
Yeah, or
collaborative
based, community-based leadership, not just leadership in an isolated view. I mean, you are now representing more than just yourself. You are representing more than just your view. You are representing a broad, and you are not just performing as an individual board member. You are performing as a member of a team, which by in and of itself, the five of us are supposed to be trying to, get there. That is to say, wrestle with the issues and then come back with a good, coordinated, collaborated consensus view of where the community generally wants to go, and then work like hell to get it done. That's what you learn in these types of programs. I would hate for us to kind of drop it. I'm okay with dropping this specific label, but not the actual training. And by the way, Katie, it runs with the territory, which means to say, when you're elected, you go like, giddy up. It's all this extra stuff.
What I was saying, Dwayne, is we can't put in our board documents that we have to do a training program that you have to apply and be accepted to. Because who's going to guarantee that you are going to get in, So I think something like our community, such as maybe a collaborative leadership program, but we can't.
Such as. The good news is that neither program at the moment is conducting any kind of like filtering. If you want in, you're in, by 99%. But maybe we'll change that.
But let's
with our application.
Here's my suggestion. Let's leave this in here, and let's make an effort to be trained in our community listens and see if we think that's worth it. And then go on and maybe we change it later. But I took the course and I feel like it's very helpful in collaborative communication and just dealing with others.
How would one contact? Who is there a contact?
Yeah, and I think I can find that, so I can send that around.
I think instead of the board member will be taking effort, there's no reason why when we have 2 or 3 new board members coming on, it can't be organized by, say, Eliza for us to do. So, and then there's also, we use coherent governance a couple times in this one.
Yeah, that should be our governance model, governance training, just in general.
We decided on policy training.
Or maybe we didn't weren't even that specific.
No, you're right. It was governance. You're right. It was governance.
I think just governance training refresh with consultants, and we can take out, this may also include AGI wisdom sharing conferences.
Yep.
Those budget numbers accurate?
Yeah.
For this year?
I think the budget is accurate. I'm not sure that we will spend that much.
Yeah, we probably won't get there. That's right. Yeah, we'll probably underperform against this savings. Yeah.
So do we need to include actual numbers it broken out or just give a, I mean, it's extra work to constantly look to make sure we're in compliance every time we do a new budget. We're, seems a little silly.
Yeah, we don't. This is just the general. It stays the same and we plan our training in conjunction with it. Meaning the budget takes this policy into consideration each year and keeps it about the same. I'm pretty sure we don't, I mean, I don't know. That seems really high actually for conferences, but I guess if we're all going to the Broadmoor, it's quite a bit.
Well, and
Anyway.
one of the numbers in there is an audit, which changes, I don't know what our audit budget is, what we just got quoted for our audit, so.
I think it's within this. I would think that we wouldn't need to change it unless Linda tells us.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I'd like to have the number in there just for, if for nothing else, a
Yeah.
bit of a benchmark. Yeah, and it's pacing fine. In fact, we're going to be a bit under these numbers, I'm sure, for this particular year.
And we'll talk about that a bit in GP8E
Yeah,
as
right.
well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to suggest an add, Susan, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I would add 1E that the board will periodically survey the community to gain insight into how the state of the Aspen School District or something along those lines.
Um,
And the reason is we
Yeah.
outsourced this to the DAC and we haven't done it ourselves.
yeah, I think it's a good thing. I'm trying to remember if that's,
We got a budget in 2C for surveys.
Yeah, for sure, but it might even be
It seems like
replicated
there's-
in another government
that's what I was trying to,
policy.
yeah, that's what I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
Um,
Good suggestion. I would say periodically, but no less than once a year on freak. That is frequency. There you go.
Yeah,
I mean,
whatever word we want to
that
put in
gonna
there,
be-
but I think it's important, and I think it, in the past, I mean, I know we tried to do it on the DAC, but then there was like this misalignment between what the board wanted to hear and what the DAC wanted to hear, and I think it's our responsibility to be reaching out, or maybe we can even through the superintendent, but I mean, we need to make sure that we're getting feedback in a consistent manner from.
So this particular policy is if it's going to cost us money and we're going to hire an outside party to do that, we put it in this policy. If we want it to just be done and we are planning on just sending out a survey ourselves, that's probably in a different policy.
Okay, well, I think it's
Um,
important enough for here, and I think it's going to cost us money. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking about like the Aspen City survey that they do all the time as well. I mean, they're doing that with somebody who's professional at doing these surveys and asking the right questions and getting it out there.
I think we could, Susan, can I just ask a question to you to clarify?
Sure.
So
Yes.
the bond, the survey that we did for the bond,
Mhm.
this is potentially be coming out of that budget?
Okay.
That's a question.
Oh.
The survey for the bond, yeah, I think it could come from this budget for sure.
Doesn't that go in the bond budget?
Yeah, I think.
Does it
that
get rolled
might-
in afterwards?
I think that might be outside of the part, but actually the timing of it, right, Susan? Vis-a-vis the registration and, officially getting on to the record with the county and the ballot, blah, blah. I mean, we're just polling our community as to what their appetite is for that. It might be justified in our own operating budget. If it's like beyond that, it's kind of tied to the structure and the framework of the campaign. It can't be funded by general funds. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that one was related to policy and how we wanted to pursue the bond as I mean, that was based on the consultants. We didn't do that separately, right? We made the consultants, the policy consultants to do that. So.
Right. Anyway, yeah, we could look at that offline there, Eliza, for sure.
And I would say, as far as the survey, there's an OE7 that is relationship and communication with parents and community. And I think that's where we would add annually conduct a survey. That's actually the operational expectations, that we would annually, or however often we want, to get feedback, right?
Yeah, periodically, but no
Yeah,
less than annual.
So that would be, and maybe, and I guess I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other at this point. If we want it to be the board's responsibility and make sure that we're doing that, it's here. If it's something that is done by the superintendent and his staff, and we want it to be presented to us in that operational report, then I would put it in the other one. I just say my personal experience was when we did do it, it was a nightmare.
Well, Jonathan, what about with the section 2B that talks about financial audit, like for operational performance? I mean, it could be including, but not limited to, financial audit and surveys.
Okay.
I think it would fit in pretty neatly there.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Oh, now I've just really lost our whole agenda. Hold on.
It would be on 1B, limit to fiscal. This includes, but is not limited to, a fiscal audit and or surveys, something like that. Okay, that's fine
Does
with
that
me.
sound good to everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Eliza, do you have a pretty good idea of the changes that we ultimately decided on?
Yeah, I have a running list of every change for every section. So I'll just make those changes, and then on Susan and Susie, if you want, I could just send them to you just as a once over, but we could approve them tonight with the changes that are going to be presented.
Okay, let's do that.
I read something that we have to, wasn't there something in one policy that we have to present a change in policy and then approve it at the next meeting or something? Or did I just make that up?
It's probably good form. So let's do this. Eliza, if you could make all the changes and make sure that they're still noted in green so that we can tell what they are. And we'll put this on as a consent agenda item at our next meeting, and we'll just vote on it quickly. And that way we'll have looked at it, as it is going to be changed, and make sure that we're all clear with that. And then we'll do it in 2 meetings.
Okay, that sounds
good.
And Eliza, if you can remind me, there was a question I had about in OE5, taking out textbooks and adding in digital platforms, but I didn't see that in the red line. I didn't see OE5, and I wondered whether maybe Susan and Dave removed that, or?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay.
No, I think we were just trying to stick with the GPs at this meeting, and then chip away at every meeting at a different grouping of things. But
okay, that's fine.
That's fine. Because we have to review the BSRs as well, but that's going to be a little bit more, a little longer.
Okay, that's fine. Great.
Okay. Does that sound like a good plan? We're going to vote on it the next meeting. Let's move on to GP8E. And what I'd like to do here is just talk for a second about what we want to do about the CASB convention, which is now going to be online. And I sent you the agenda just so that you could look and see whether you felt like those things would be interesting. The cost is about $200 per person. And would we rather spend our money on some sort of other training or consultant?
For me, it's the latter. That is to say, something local.
Yeah, I think.
Same, agreed.
And we're going to end up saving dollars no matter what, which is good,
Yeah.
obviously, for the overall operating budget for this year.
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
I agree.
We can plan out what that might look like and what we would like to do at another time. But now we don't need to save.
Having said that, I'd like to ask Dave, being new to Colorado and not having participated in CASB before, if he as an individual might want to do that. It's a separate topic from the board. We all go together. So
True.
Thanks for that, Katie. I am trying to get involved with CASE. And then when the full board does CASB, I'd like to get more involved with CASB. But I'm trying to dial into the CASE trainings, and actually stayed home from that conference a couple weeks ago. It was in person over in Breckenridge, but stayed home, just felt like there was too much to do here. I'm going to try to stay close to home for the first year and really focus on this district.
And then the only other question is whether our CFO might need that as well. There are a number of sort of financial related things. So I just want to make sure that we're not being short-sighted for staff on not going to CASB.
And I think Eliza too, because
yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
There is a good section for, I think that Angela always enjoyed with the board secretary piece, but I don't know if it's as good online as it is in person. So that would be something you could.
How about
maybe
I
ask
would
around
just
about.
suggest that Dave makes that decision with his staff. That would
Yeah.
be mine. And that the board not going doesn't mean that people who
Exactly.
get value of it should not go.
Yep.
Yeah, I do remember Angela learned about new digital platforms that she found really helpful from some of the CASB talks.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we'll
yeah,
take
Dave.
a look and circle our wagons around that and see.
Great. Okay, moving on. We have 8.2, the core collaborative. We've heard Dave sort of discuss this a bit. Does anyone have any questions or comments about it? I guess I would go ahead. Maybe not.
I'd make a motion to approve 8.2, the core collaborative proposal for professional development as presented by superintendent this evening.
Second.
No further discussion.
Eliza, you want to call the vote?
Certainly. Do you want to include the dual? Did you include the dual litigation in there as well?
We
We'll do
can.
it separate.
Okay.
Oh,
We'll
do you want to do it separate? Okay.
Okay. Okay. So roll call for section 8.2 is Katie Frisch.
Aye.
Susan Marolt.
Aye.
Jonathan Nickel.
Aye.
Dwayne Romero.
Aye.
And Susie Zimmett.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Section 8.2 approved.
Let me make a
8.3
motion.
is the dual litigation. Dave, did you have any more details, or does anyone have questions about that?
I would only say that another thing that the benefit we're hoping to get out of this, if I understood correctly from the material, Dave, is that it could provide potentially money to install vape sensors in the bathrooms where it seems to be the biggest problem.
That's true, and it's
And education and all those kind of things.
the education piece and funding, maybe even offsetting some of the cost of counseling that's involved with it. There's a range of opportunities, including detection and support for kiddos who've gone down that trail.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Can I have a motion to approve the dual litigation as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Do a quick roll call. Katie Frisch.
Aye.
Susan Marolt.
Aye.
Jonathan Nickel. Jonathan.
Did I not say aye? Aye, sorry.
Dwayne Romero.
Aye.
And Susie Zimmett.
Aye.
All right. So moved. Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the consent action items as presented this evening in our agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Quickly, Katie Frisch.
Aye.
Susan Marolt.
Aye.
Jonathan Nickel.
Aye.
Dwayne Romero.
Aye.
And Susie Zimmett.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Okay. We have some future agenda items. Next, that we have just kept on the list. Some of these things we've kind of covered, so we'll be able to take some of them off. Anyone have any other things that came up at this meeting or that came up in the past few weeks that you'd like to add as a future agenda item?
Just to follow up on canceling CASB, we should probably do something else.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know what that is, but we should probably do something else.
So Eliza, will you put something in here, a conversation with Dave and board to plan future education opportunities?
As long as it's not a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, let's go on to the debrief. Jonathan?
Okay, so I would say the meeting itself went fairly well, fairly smoothly. Good job, Susan. I would like to encourage everybody to continue to give feedback from all parties. And I would also like to encourage everybody to be considerate in their feedback. And, you know, if the first word you're reading in it is an email is, you should do this now, I don't think that's well received by anybody, either by teachers, by staff, by board members, by parents. So kind of be respectful in that communication if you want to be heard, because otherwise people just get emotional and just block out everything else that's in the rest of the email. So I would just, you know, continue everybody. I know we're all getting frustrated as things, you know, continue to move along, and, you know, not everything is back to normal, but that's going to be what we have to live with. So we just need to continue to have open dialogue with everybody involved here. And I appreciate everybody's comments from all sides. It's important to get everybody's voice in the room, but in a respectful way. It was so great to not have the chat feature going on during this meeting. I thought that was a big improvement. I look forward to hearing what people sent to us privately in the different parts. So please continue that process as well. And maybe the last thing I'll say is just, please continue to look for solutions that will help us get through this. I mean, I heard a lot of obstacles today, and I didn't hear as many solutions as I would have liked. And there are things that seem to be, you know, problems. I'm not going to qualify them as minor or major, but that we need to work together to come up with solutions and overcome, so that we can do the best for everybody, staff, students, parents, teachers, the whole group, and get the schools back up and running again in a safe manner. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we all know that the current environment, even though everybody's doing a really great job, it's just not the same as the in-person learning. And, you know, it's never going to be. So, you know, the sooner we can all get back there together, the better off we'll all be. And so that would just be my little soapbox for the end of the meeting, and to keep at it.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. It is 7:40 p.m. and I'll take a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
And bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
See
everybody.
guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks everybody for your participation and hard work.
Yeah, I agree.